6. I apologize for the late start. This meeting will be conducted in person in the Sanford City Council chambers and via remote video and teleconference pursuant to 1 MRSA Section 403B2D and Section 6 of the Sanford City Council Rules of Procedure as amended and adopted May 3, 2022. Members of the public may join the meeting by phone by dialing 1-929-205-6099 using meeting ID 826-8114-2429 and password 157029 or via computer at the link provided on the city's website. Members of the public may also submit comments via the City of Sanford website at www.sanfordmaine.org under Email, City Departments, City Council. Please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And I think we have a lot to be thankful for today, so if we could all just bow our heads for a moment of silence. Thank you. Thank you. Roll call. Councillor Termath.
Present.
Councillor Brink.
Present.
Councillor Martell.
Present.
Councillor Hanselman.
Present.
Councillor Stackpole.
Present.
Deputy Mayor Herlihy. Present. And I'm Anne Marie Mastracchio, Mayor of the City of Sanford, and this evening we're joined with Stephen Buck, the City Manager, and Larissa Ricketts, the City Manager's Executive Assistant. I'm going to, unless there's objection, I'm going to put something new on the agenda that we will take before the minutes, and it is a debrief of today's incident at Sanford High School. We ask the City Manager to begin. Thank you. If I could ask everybody to make sure your phones are off, and if you're home and on Zoom, that you're muted, please. Thank you.
Thank you. So I'm going to keep my comments short this evening because I want you to hear from those that were truly at the scene and serving our community proudly today. I want to thank all municipal and school department staff for the coordinated response to the egregious action that happened against our school, our students, and our city today when an active shooter response was called in with 5 students down. Collectively, our city and school departments have been proactive in training using the ALICE model. They've trained for an active shooter occurrence, and that training paid dividends for us today. For the first hour and a half today, it was all hands on deck. They were there for the majority of the morning. We did not know when the call first went out that it ultimately was going to be a hoax. So the reality of what was taking place at that point in time, and now the reality of dealing with the trauma after the fact and the impacts on our community is our new face of reality. The response by our public safety personnel today was outstanding. The dispatch center, the police department, fire and EMS, public works, parks and rec, all had a hand in the response today. I would also note that the response by the school department and their staffing was outstanding as well. Again, I want to compliment the training that occurred between the school department and the police department, the police and fire training together for this type of occurrence. It is, again, truly outstanding. I also want to thank the parents of our students. Their response today, their understanding and waiting. I know that must have been excruciating for them to wait to be reunited with their children and allowing us to grapple with the details to allow for that to take place. So thank you to all of the parents. I'd like to call upon at this time and have them come to the podium. I'd like to have Chief Anderson come up. DC Small, are you coming as well? Chief Benotti and Superintendent Matt Nelson. I'd like them to provide a briefing on what took place today and what their impressions are and what our next steps are moving forward. So, thank you.
Thank you, Steve. So this morning at 8:20, we received a report from someone who said they were inside the school of an active shooter event with injuries, that 5 students had been shot. As Steve mentioned, it wasn't all hands on deck. Every member of the police department that was currently working responded. The SROs that were in the school engaged, did what they're supposed to do, what they're trained to do. I think the response time was about 3 minutes, and every working member of the police department was on scene, either interior or exterior. And they made entry into the building, and they began engaging and looking for this threat. But I would think that it's important that you take into consideration that we basically have two responsibilities: stop the violence and save the lives of anybody that's injured. Once those are accomplished, the rest is just work, right? But those things, if those things don't get done, then we fail. I am exceedingly, I don't know what to say, like, you have a great team. You have a great team. And every team member of every agency that responded, of every municipal organization that works for you in this community, was outstanding. I can't compliment the school department enough. It couldn't have been done as efficiently as it was. Maybe it couldn't have been done at all without their involvement. You had school administrators who stayed in the building throughout this whole event, unarmed, obviously, with no body armor or protection, and escorted teams of officers to different areas to unlock doors, to provide them with the intrinsic knowledge of the school that we just don't have. You had school, a gal, and Matt knows her, I'm sure, Amanda. I don't know Amanda's last name, but without Amanda, we couldn't have gotten the things done that we needed to get done. She was outstanding. And so that's what we were faced with. We didn't know at 0820 that it was going to be a hoax. And we didn't really figure that out. Within a short period of time of arriving on scene, we began to suspect that. But again, you don't know. And we didn't know that were other locations a hoax and this was real? Was this a hoax and other locations were real? Was it an action to draw students out of the school into the open? We just didn't know. So we continued to work this problem as though it was what it was reported to be. And so it took several hours, 3.5 or so hours, to conclude that the school was safe. Students were taken to a safe location, and we began a reunification process. And I know that caused some anxiety and some stress, and that's understandable. And I do want to echo what Mr. Buck said, that it's important that we recognize our students and their families for what they endured today, because they didn't know. You know, when we became aware that it's probably a hoax, that lifted a burden off us. But those families and students didn't know that. And they didn't know that maybe for quite some time. And I think it's important that we recognize the stress that they went through and are going through to deal with that. Same with the school administration folks. They were there in the building. They didn't have the knowledge that we knew what we were figuring out. And so we really appreciate that they kept it together. Right, we're asking folks to do something that is extraordinarily rare. Keep it together in a time of stress like no other, and they did that. They kept it together, they kept the kids safe, they did what they were supposed to do. Mr. Buck did bring up some points. We, as first responders, have trained recently. The fire department, the police department is trained for stop the bleed and to respond together into these violent situations to make sure that we can provide the best care for the students or for whoever's injured, if it's a workplace or if it's a school. The schools have taken on the ALICE program, which is alert, lockdown, inform, counter, and evacuate. They've been trained to perform certain tasks, which they did. And we can't speak highly enough for the folks that were involved in bringing that training here and implementing that training. And I would like to mention SRO Joe Jordan, who wasn't there today because he's at a training, but he was there because the things that we saw the students and the teachers do are what he trained them to do. And if he hadn't have put the effort and time, and many of you know him, and Joe's just an outstanding human, if he didn't put the effort and time that he did, it may have not have gone so well. But it did. It did because you have a great team. And that's pretty much all I got to say. Matt, Steve, Eric, anything?
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you, Chief. Thank you, Steve. I want to also reiterate what both Steve and Chief have talked about. This is a really challenging day, but one that you hope these, first of all, just so lucky that nothing happened. I can't stress that enough, that is something to be really, really grateful for. But as Chief mentioned, we do practice this a lot, and we know what's going on, and there's probably a pretty fine line between practice and actually thinking something here's going on, something's actually happening. And that unknown piece is really difficult, but I remain so proud of our students and our staff. These are things that we prepared and trained for. We went, put those into action, and during that time, there was something that was going on statewide today, but Sanford was first, and we certainly didn't know, and we didn't have information to confirm. I also want to thank our families, because that's an incredibly difficult spot to be in, to be able to have the information flying around that we can't confirm in doing that. I want to also thank our first responders. They did what they've been trained to do and put their lives on the line. We're talking about people who are husbands and wives and brothers and sisters and friends, that there was no hesitation, no waiting for that. That response time was unbelievable, and that was something that we were able to do our best to be able to keep our lines of communication open. That's challenging. Everyone wants information, and they want it so fast, and we want that information to go out, but at the same time, we want it to make sure that that information is accurate and that it's confirmed. And so that was information that we were doing our best to be able to have that information go out. The coordination that we had amongst our groups was excellent. Also want to thank our transportation. We were able to get buses and be able to come back and bring those things to put those into place. We were able to go set up the reunification to do that. I also want to thank our in addition to our staff and administrators and teachers, our school counselors. Today's been a really difficult day, but we also got some more difficult days ahead of us. We're not going to have school tomorrow at the high school or SRTC. That's something that we want to make sure that there will be counselors available for people. That's information that they'll be available tomorrow between 10 and 1. The school is open if people have to come in to get something or come in to be able to get their belongings or to come in to be able to see someone. We also need the school open to be able to be there for our staff. We're going to come back, and we're also going to be able to check in to make sure that everyone is okay, and then we can be able to also be able to start planning so that we can have our students, our high school students and our SRTC students come back to school on Thursday, and for us to be ready for that. We've worked closely with our Beth Letourneau and our school counseling department to be able to send out information this evening, also sending information out for parents. This isn't just something that we're talking about that's isolated to Sanford High School. It's also going to all of our schools. We have siblings who are there at various schools, and so we're doing our best to also be prepared to go back and be ready for that as we come back. This is what we do. We come back and we step up and we support our students and families during this challenging time. I am so incredibly proud to work in this community and work in this school department. I can't begin to speak enough to see all the people who are being able to come back and step up and work together to be able to help us navigate such a terrible, terrible, scary incident, for us to be able to go back and look at that. Incredibly proud when you see that support and people stepping up to be able to do that. I'm also worried for where we go from here, that we have to come back and be able to realize this. It's also a time for us to also continue to look at those procedures and those things that we have in place to make sure that we can do a debrief for those so that we can continuous. Nothing stops here. This is continuing to be ongoing and to be ongoing so that if it was ever to happen again, we're going to be ready and be more ready to be able to respond to that for it. So, thank you.
Thank you, Matt. Chief Benatti?
Good evening. I'd like to just, not to rehash what everybody's already said, but there's a couple of things I think are important. One is three things that stand out in my mind are people, team, and training. The people are the people of the school department that work there, the police department, fire and EMS, all of the public employees that responded today. These are the people that make things like this go well, or as well as can happen because of it. The team aspect is we work together. We worked well with our teams from out of town, our mutual aid partners in the fire EMS world. We were able to have 3 air ambulances on standby for immediate use if needed. We had multiple hospitals from Portsmouth to Maine Med on standby. They were gearing up their OR staffs and their ER staffs, and they were closing down their ERs to all other incoming items. We also had mutual aid partners coming in with expertise, those who had trained just like we had. So we had other trained individuals on site to help do evacuations if need be, do the treatment and transport, all that sort of thing that goes into play here. So this doesn't come overnight. It comes with a lot of training. I have an amazing staff that provided and reached out to the PD, and we worked well with the PD to get a lot of this training done in the last year and a half, and we still have more to go. But today was a win. So we took this as a, look back at it as a training incident, because it was that in one respect, but it was the most lifelike training incident you could imagine. One of the things we did not anticipate, but we will work on going forward, is the incident after the incident. So what we found is, although we were able to remove students from the high school safely, the police had armed escorted police to move with the buses to the reunification center. Once we got the reunification center, we weren't anticipating that adrenaline letdown that these students and everybody else was going through. And with it came anxiety, and with it came problems. So we had to quickly ramp up again and start dealing with patients at the reunification center. So that's something moving forward that we know we have to anticipate. And I know Matt's staff and the counselors and stuff that he has available will be working hard over the next week or weeks to get these students back on a net zero so they can function appropriately and get this, let them better understand what went on today and the reasons that things happen. So with that, again, extremely proud of the people who work here, and hopefully we'll be as good or better next time. And I hate to say this, but who knew, that in Sanford, Maine, this would be here in our laps. But I want to assure you we are prepared, so.
Thank you, Chief. DC Small? And congratulations on your recent wedding.
Thank you, Mayor.
Haven't had a chance to say that, but
Appreciate it. That isn't why I'm up here, though.
I know that, but, things turned out so well today, so I figured I could say that.
Thank
so.
you. The chief asked me to come back up, and as I sit there, what I truly think about is, the leadership in our city and in the police department. It's built on relationships and partnerships. And one thing that we say at the police department in the hallways is nobody does anything by themselves. It's a phrase that we utter often. And we've tried to show you in the city and the citizens that from homelessness to mental health to our law enforcement to providing excellent law enforcement service, essentially. So today, what I saw as I went into that building was many law enforcement agencies, and I'm going to try to name them all because I think it's important. State Police, the Sheriff's Department, North Berwick, South Berwick, Berwick, Elliott,
Wells?
Wells PD, Algonquin Police Department, York Police Department, Saco Police Department, federal agencies, Kennebunk Police Department, Office of Homeland Security. I saw people there I didn't know, and we didn't call them. They just came. But what I did see is a lot of people that we do know, and we know them by name, and we know their families, and we have relationships with them. And I truly think that, I know they're going to come, but when you can say, call them by name when they arrive, and it's not about positions or status or titles, if you're the chief or the deputy chief. I saw police chiefs escorting students out the door from other agencies.
Families
And
with children
everybody-
under 18 this season.
Thank you, Ben. Everybody just worked together as a team, and when the chief sat down, he asked me to come up here and tell you guys that, because he
Help fulfill
didn't
wishes
mention
for
it. So
all of those.
I think it's really important that, I hope we set an example for everybody that sits up there and just for the community, school department. I mean, I worked with a bunch of heroes today, no doubt about it. So, thank you.
Thank you, Eric. Do we have an opportunity if any counselors have questions they want to ask? Counselor Brink.
Many of us showed up at Memorial Gym today. I was so proud to see the school committee there in force. The city councilors were also there. We had staff members there who were totally in control. We had students behave beyond belief. They had to sit there for hours, and yet there were no problems. It was amazing. We had lines and lines of parents outside Memorial Gym waiting to come in and give us their child's name. As a parent, I can't even fathom that. And yet they stayed in control. There was no fighting or pushing or shoving to get there first. They knew everybody was in the same position. How proud I am to say that I belong to Sanford, and Sanford is a great, great city. So I would just like to thank all the people who did turn out to even at Memorial Gym after the fact to help out. And I am so proud of the fire department, the police department, the school department. Where else could you live but have that many people show up at an incident to make sure our students were safe? And when the police all zoomed into that building, I wish we could show that on television so that people would know you don't mess with Sanford. Sanford is a community that sticks together, and no matter what, we all step forward when we are called to do something for our city. So I just wanted to make a point of thanking everybody and to let you all know how proud I am to be on the city council and your future mayor. Now I know how important that position is, so thank you all.
Thank you, Becky. I couldn't have said it any better. Good. Any other counselors have any questions? I'll go to Counselor Hanselman first.
Thank you. And I echo a lot of the sentiments from this evening. There are three things I want to comment on very briefly. One, very similar to other comments, is I was incredibly impressed, having been at the Unification Center at Willard, about the way we had volunteers, community members such as council members, our school committee, and staff pulled together to make sure our kiddos were okay and got reunited with their parents. It was impressive, amazing, and inspiring to have that happen. I will, however, also say that as a parent and as an elected official that hears concerns from other parents and community members, the 1 hour delay between communication from us hearing from our students and our friends in that building and communication from our school department felt like 24 hours. And during that time, we had an active shooter in our community. We felt that, and Chief Anderson mentioned that earlier. So for all intent purposes, our community felt the fear, worry, I think powerlessness, from a standpoint of what do we do, what can we do? And I just want to urge us as we look to the emergency plan with something like this happening again, to look at ways we can communicate more quickly. And Superintendent Nelson, I hear you saying we didn't know exactly what the answer was, and I respect that comment, but sometimes communication has to happen before we have the black and white of everything, because we're hearing from our kids. We're getting communication from 10 different places, which isn't from the people, it's not from our leadership, from the school department. It really would have made a difference to hear from folks sooner, and I just want to share that both personally and in talking to other parents in our community. The last thing I want to share is one of the initial volunteers on site at Memorial Gym, along with Counselor Termath and Luke Lanigan and others. When we look at the emergency plan, both from a municipal standpoint and Memorial Gym, and we look at the school department using that as a potential site in the future or the situation arising in the future, there has got to be a better plan for leadership on site. So I was approached by an officer in the building who said, "Who's in charge?" And I looked around and I said, I have no idea. There's like 6 of us in the building. Students are arriving on buses and coming into the building, and there was not a school department representative on site in the building. I understand we had vice principals outside helping with getting kids off buses, which was extremely important. I'm glad they were there for that. But as a volunteer effectively on that site, I think we just need to look at improvements to the process so that we're not looking around going, who's in charge right now? We've got to have a clear leader. I'm glad to hear from Chief Anderson and understand why Matt Peterman wasn't on site. That makes sense to me now, so thank you for that information. I know that folks at central office are extremely busy, but again, having a clear defined leader on site in the building managing students coming in was missing today for quite some time. So that's just something to think about in our future emergency plan. And I know at some point we'll discuss Memorial Gym. We need to look at emergency manuals, supplies that weren't in existence, bins that we can just pull out quickly to use. There's some improvements we need to make from a municipal standpoint at that building, which of course we're just getting settled in as well. But thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Hanselman. And I'll just add that one of the wonderful things about today is that nothing horrible happened, and we're able to learn from this in a way that all of us, we've already had some of those discussions on how we can do better, because there are some things we think of it as the incident is just what's happening at the school, and it isn't. The bigger incident today was actually those kids at Memorial Gym and how are we going to get them home. And it went, honestly, we were done by noon, which the clocks were not turned back in Memorial Gym, so I thought it was a whole hour later. So when I found out it was 12, I was really impressed with how quickly we were able to do that. So I know that we will use this as a learning experience, and I'm just grateful that it doesn't have to be after a tragedy. So I'm extremely thankful for everyone that pitched in today, from dispatch all the way to the people who, had to go back to the high school and debrief after getting every kid on a bus. And many of them had to get on a bus, I think, to get back to the high school, because all their cars and everything, their wallets and their keys and everything was back at the high school. Councilor Termath, I think you were next.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And also, I'd just like to say, because, yes, we have the news media here tonight, but I don't want the camera on me. The camera needs to be on those 4 gentlemen sitting in the front row. Our first responders, all right, men and women put their life on the line for our community. And our community stepped up today. They stepped up big time. And one thing that should be on the news is that Sanford is the example of how a community comes together when we feel that there's a situation that has to be addressed in a potential active shooter situation such as this. In a real world, you go live, been there, done that kind of thing. You know, the community pulled together along with our leaders. Those are our community leaders, and I just want to say to you guys, thank you from the bottom of my heart. You guys are rock stars. You guys are the heroes. I sit up here and echo, you know, for the community, but you protect the community. So thank you again.
Jonathan, you had your hand up?
Yeah, I'd
Sir
just like to-
Martel?
Thank
Go
you.
ahead.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd just like to echo some of the previous comments and also thank everyone sitting up here that for all the proactive work you've done ahead of time. I know I've had some discussions around with Chief Anderson about this sort of incident and preparation, and you know, I've been very impressed with what I've heard, and I'm glad that we had plans in place. And while obviously there's always going to be some lessons learned and opportunities for improvement, no one got injured, and you know, I'm thankful that it was a hoax, or ended up being a hoax. But you know, obviously this was a good learning experience, and I look forward to making some improvements in the future and continuing to work with you guys. So thank you.
Anybody else have anything they want to add or say? I didn't know if anybody from the school committee wanted to make some comments or say anything. You don't have to. I just wanted to not ignore the fact that I know that you're all here, or most of you are that I can see. So I just didn't want to ignore you back there, because I appreciate the fact that you have been in the same place that we've all been since about 8:30 this morning. So it's been a long day. Paula?
Hi, everybody. I just wanted to echo everything that everybody has said. Just so thankful to be in this community and the way that everybody gathered together. Parents, teachers, admin, first-time responders, everybody. I'm just glad that we're all here and that, like you said, we can learn from this and that we're not sitting here amidst a huge tragedy. So thank you to everybody. Much appreciated.
Thank you, Paula. Okay. I think that pretty much can wrap up this evening. I'm sure it'll be a topic of discussion in the future, but thank you all. I know that you have to be a whole lot more tired even than we are, and because all we did was, I mean, honestly, I feel like I didn't do anything, and it was like totally exhausting. So go on home unless you have something on the agenda, and I'm sorry if you have to be here for that. So, but otherwise, thank you all very much. I'm going to go on with the agenda now. So first item is the minutes. Minutes of 22-529-01. Order to approve the minutes from the executive session of the City Council held on November 1st, 2022, and I'll just remind Councillor Stackpole that you were not there for that. So could I have a motion to approve? Councillor Brink?
So moved.
Motion by Councillor Brink. Is there a second? Councillor Martel?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? That is 6 in favor and one abstention. 22-530-01. Order to approve the minutes from the regular City Council meeting held on November 1st, 2022. Do I have a motion to approve? Councillor Brink?
So moved.
Councillor Martel?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion by the council? Seeing none, all those in favor by a show of hands, that is unanimous. Mayor's report, City Council Subcommittee report. I have I gotta find it. I just have a short mayor's report this evening. The process of hiring a fire chief has begun and will be similar to that used when we selected our police chief. There will be an initial review of applications followed by an oral board review of candidates and final interviews of selected candidates. The selection committee will include the following at various points along the way: Deputy Mayor Herlihy and Mayor-elect Brink, the city manager, the human resource director, the police chief, 2 representatives from the fire department, and representatives from the medical and EMS community. Ultimately, the city manager recommends and appoints the final candidate subject to the approval of the city council. I'm happy to report that all of the charter amendments passed. In light of that, I'm hoping to initiate a meeting between the mayor-elect, the deputy mayor, the city manager, the finance director, and school department representatives to begin the budget process/schedule discussion. It is my expectation that the council will have their first opportunity to weigh in on that process in January of 2023. And that's all I have this evening. City manager's report.
I do not have a formal report tonight.
Gee, Steve, I don't know why.
I don't, yeah. Today, I want to agree, today was exhausting, to say the least. Couple of quick things, though. I would like to remind the public that in this room in the council chambers on Thursday, starting at 3 p.m. in the afternoon, from 3 to 5, we'll have an open house on the RAISE grant. We'll have members from MDOT and the engineering firms that are working with us in partnership on the RAISE grant. It'll give the public an opportunity to come in and see the plans, talk one-on-one for those areas that may be impacting their property, you know, as in construction on the streets happening adjacent to their properties. And then we'll have an hour break from 5 to 6, and then at 6 p.m. in this room, there will be a public hearing where you can come in, make comment on the RAISE grant, the scope, the plans, and such under that, and we'll take those substantive comments into account, and the engineering firms and MDOT and the city will address those comments as appropriate. I also had a report from our assessing office that there are now 939 total applications received for the senior stabilization program. I will note that at the Legislative Policy Committee last week, this continues to be top of the board as far as municipal priorities to address the fact that there's no funding for the program and that there needs to be many, and I know Mayor Mastracchio indicates that there is significant legislation coming forward to address this. I just hope that it's not a huge letdown, right? That tens of thousands of people across the state are making application for something that may or may not come to fruition. Other than that, I would like to thank you as counselors. Just a minute, this is tough for me. There. So as we say as I say a lot of times around the homelessness issue, Sanford is fortunate in that we're large enough to muster the resources, but we're small enough to care, right? Just a moment. So I saw a lot of that today. There. I just want to thank the police department, especially. The SRT team was training at the police department when the call came out, and that entire department emptied out and took that school by storm. Yeah. So I just want to thank them for that. They put their lives on the line today. Sorry, so I want to thank you for that. So as I've been trained, it's never a matter of if, it's always a matter of when. And today was when. And when the GO command went out, they addressed it. I'm proud to serve with the individuals that put that training in place and were able to respond in the way that they did. So thank you.
Thank you, Steve. I think that you just said what we're all feeling, so thank you for doing that. Okay. Communications and presentations. There are none. Public participation for items that are not on the agenda. Should I go and... Sure? I don't... Right. I'll see if there's anybody. And just to be clear, if there's an item that's an agenda item, you will be able to speak under that item. You don't have to speak under public participation. Oh, there is. Oh, okay. Okay, so Hazen, you're first on the list, but but do you want, is this about the item, the agenda item, correct? That
I would like to defer my time to speak last on the rail trail.
Right, that I'll make sure that you get to speak when okay, so Mark Pombriant. Okay. Matt Leggett, I'm assuming you're here, and Jeff Dwyron for the other thing. So I'm just going to cross these off. All right, thank you. Okay. Public hearings. The City Council will take public comment on the following. 22-525-01, a public hearing to receive comments on the proposed amendments to an ordinance titled Smoking and Tobacco Use. Okay, I'll declare the public hearing opened. I think that Chief Anderson is going to present on this to speak in favor.
Yes. What we noticed in our ordinances is that all the city parks were included into the original ordinance except for one, Central Park. So what we're asking is that we include Central Park into the Chapter 215 ordinance, and we amend it so that not only could someone receive a fine or a penalty of not to exceed $50, but that violators of the provision would be subject to removal from the property and issued a criminal trespass notice. And we think that that would be, for folks who are compliant and care, they'll be fine. But folks who are repeat offenders or who aren't compliant, a $50 fine is not, honestly, that's not realistic. We can write summonses for ordinances. They don't really get to court. And when they do, they just don't get in front of a judge because the court is overwhelmed. And as you know, they're building a new court in Biddeford, and that's where everybody's got to go. However, if someone is facing the realization that they may not be able to enjoy that park because of their bad behavior, then maybe they'll think twice and not do that. So that's what we would like to see with that part of the ordinance. And this also extends to the other one as well, the safe zone and drug-free zone. They're both
Right.
the same.
All right, we'll just finish this one, though, and you'll have to just talk about those when we get to the other ones, okay, Chief?
Yes,
If
okay.
that all right? Is there anyone else to speak in favor? Is there anyone to speak against? Do you have any questions before I close the hearing? Okay, no questions from the council. So I will declare the public hearing closed. 22-526-01, a public hearing to receive comments on the proposed amendments to an ordinance titled Parks, Schools, Malls, and Cemeteries. Declare the public hearing open. Chief, you can continue.
Okay, so this one is a little bit different. We talked about this, I want to say, several council meetings ago, and this encompasses two things. The drug-free zone, which again, Central Park was somehow left out of that in the original ordinance, and we'd like to bring that in line with the other parks. And then, again, add the criminal trespass notice, removal from the property if folks are not abiding by the rules. And then what we talked about was the potential of someone constructing or erecting a shelter or something that is inappropriate in one of the parks or on school property. And there was really no provision to regulate that. So if you look at your packet, and I'm sure it's in there, what we have written basically is no person or persons shall erect or construct any type of permanent or temporary structure, including but not limited to tents, easy-ups, tarps, boxes, or weather shelters in any of the parks, malls, or cemeteries of the city of Sanford without the permission of the city council, the city manager, or the director of Parks and Rec. And there are some events, of course, that this would be allowed. Each Saturday in the summertime, we have the farmers market, and they erect easy-ups, and that's great. We want that. We want to encourage that. We don't want to encourage someone erecting one and moving in to that particular location. And I believe it was Councilor Martell talked about when we brought this up the last time, concerned about the language so that we wouldn't be preventing someone from having some sunshade umbrella, and totally get that. So what we added to this is that, except that citizens may utilize sunshade or beach-type umbrellas while recreating in approved locations. And then the language continues on, no person or person shall basically erect or construct any type of permanent or temporary structure as described above on any school properties without the permission of the school's principal or superintendent. And I don't see Matt here now, but I feel confident that he would be supportive of that as well. We don't want to find living arrangements on Blue and Field. And so we're hoping this kind of boxes up and dots the i's and crosses the t's of these couple of ordinances.
Thank you, Chief. Anyone else to speak in favor? Anyone to speak against? Seeing none, I'll declare the public hearing closed. 22-527-01, a public hearing to receive comments on the proposed amendments to an ordinance titled Sanford Drug-Free Zone. I'll declare the public hearing open. I know you've already talked about this one. This is just the other one where you've added Central Park again.
Correct.
To the
It's just
drug-free
adding
zone.
Central Park to both those ordinances, yes.
Okay, so he's pretty much gone through all that. Did you have a question that you wanted to ask, Counselor Hanselman?
I do. I should know if I should do it under the new business or under
We can
public
do it
hearing.
when we get to, unless it's, yeah, I would say if it's for council discussion, it will happen when it's the agenda item.
Okay.
This is the public hearing portion.
I mean, it's a question a citizen might ask, I suppose.
Okay, then
And I apologize because I wasn't at the public safety meeting when this was discussed, but I noticed in comparing our list to the current Parks and Rec rental facilities, we're missing Witham Street Park, Bluen Park, and Memorial Gym now.
Well, then we should wrap this all into, at this time, while we're addressing this issue. Yeah.
So what we'll probably have, we'll discuss it under the agenda item. It will go back to subcommittee before it comes back for its second reading. So that's how we'll handle that, but
And
that's
so
great.
we can do it at the second meeting, we'll bring it to public safety and then come back.
And then come back, and then we'll be able to vote on it at that point. That's why we do 2 readings, because there are often changes in between,
We
but
miss
that's
things.
perfect.
Thank you. That was a good catch.
All right, so, and Larissa keeps really good notes, so she'll remember all this. So anyone else to speak in favor? Anyone else to speak against? And then I will declare that public hearing closed. 22-531-01, a public hearing on a proposed Knox box ordinance for multi-unit residential buildings. I'll declare the public hearing opened. Chief Benatti, I am assuming you are coming up because this is your thing. I don't know why this is making noise.
It's my thing tonight, anyway. So.
One of many. Thank you.
I'm here to speak in favor of this ordinance change. I think as we spoke in the Public Safety Subcommittee, the advantages of having the Knox box system, and this is an expansion of that, so it makes those areas that the police and fire both have to gain access to without doing damage to property a much better thing. So a little bit of investment by the property owners on one side pays off huge dividends when we have to access the property for whether it's a fire emergency or a medical emergency, and usually it's the latter, so that we don't have to leave a damaged door or something behind because maybe grandma fell in the bathroom and she can't get up and that sort of thing. So it's wide varied in that respect. So I think it's a great addition to the ordinance. So.
Is there anyone else to speak in favor? Anyone to speak against? Seeing none, I'll declare the public hearing closed. Oh, did I do something wrong?
Quickly, when it comes back for the second reading and the information and stuff, can they just make sure that the changes, like how
Will
it
be
reads
redlined.
is actually,
Yeah,
because
we'll-
that backup's not here.
We will talk
I
about
don't know
it.
why no, it's just the backup's not here. I was reminding myself.
Really?
Yeah.
I saw it. Oh, I think it might have been under, are you sure it wasn't under, because they were combined? Well, you know what? We'll talk about it when we get to that. Okay? So, consent agenda, there is nothing on the consent agenda this evening. Old business. 22-523-01, confirm the findings and order adjudging 1115 Main Street to be a dangerous building and a nuisance pursuant to 17 MRSA Sections 2851 to 2859 at the hearing held on November 1st, 2022, and authorize the city manager to sign the findings and order for the city council and have the city clerk record it in the registry of deeds and advertise or serve it upon the owner and parties in interest as required by law. Do I have a motion? Councillor Stackpole.
Move we approve.
I have a motion to approve. Do I have a second? Councillor Brink.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion by the council? Seeing none, all those in favor by a show of hands. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in favor. All those opposed? 2 opposed. That is 5 in favor, 2 opposed. Motion passes. And I just want you to make a note that it was Councillor Martell and Councillor Termath who voted in opposition. 22-538-01, confirm the findings and order adjudging 554 Main Street to be a dangerous building and a nuisance pursuant to 17 MRSA Sections 2851 to 2859 at the hearing held on November 1st, 2022, and authorize the city manager to sign the findings and order for the city council, and have the city clerk record it in the registry of deeds and advertise or serve it upon the owner and parties in interest as required by law. Do I have a motion to approve? Counselor Stackpole.
Move we approve.
Have a motion, do I have a second? Deputy Mayor Herlihy.
I'll second that motion.
We have a motion in favor and a second. Any discussion by the council? And I don't think there's anybody here from this building to speak. Is there anybody on Zoom with their hand up? Nope. Okay, no discussion. All those in favor by a show of hands? That is a unanimous vote. Okay, 22-539-01. Confirm the findings and order adjudging 19 Winter Street to be a dangerous building and a nuisance pursuant to 17 MRSA Sections 2851 to 2859 at the hearing held on November 1st, 2022, and authorize the city manager to sign the findings and order for the city council and have the city clerk record it in the registry of deeds and advertise or serve it upon the owner and parties in interest as required by law. Do I have a motion to approve? Councilor Stackpole.
Move we approve.
I have a motion. Do I have a second? Deputy Mayor Herlihy.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Discussion by the council. I know, Mr. Pombriant, you were here, and did you want to speak? If you want to, you have to come up to the mic, please. This is just an affirmation of what we did at the last meeting.
Good evening. First, I want to thank all of you for a job well done today. Very, very, very well job done. Second, I want to reiterate that everything with my building is approved for permits. I've done everything under the permits. Nothing that was expressed to you, or the council, is against permits. So please consider that while you're making your final decisions. That's all I have for right now. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Pombriant. Council discussion? I'm just reminding you that this is just affirming what we did at the last meeting. Councilor Termath.
Yeah, thank you. I'd just like to reiterate that, and I've looked at this, on my own time, and there is no time frame, by the city to impose such an arbitrary thing on a resident that's still pulling permits, still, falling within the plan that was originally set forth, by the city. So I just would like my fellow councilors to keep that in mind tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Termath. Any other discussion by the council? All those in favor, by a show of hands? 1, 2, 3, 4. All those opposed? 3 opposed. 4 in favor, 3 opposed. Motion passes. And you have the opposition. Okay. Thank you. New business, 22-533-01. Oh, shoot, I don't have the proclamation in front of me. A proclamation naming November 26, 2022 as Small Business Saturday in Sanford, and I'm just going to say that usually I have this all printed out, and I did not. For various reasons today, I didn't, and I will just try to find it real quickly. So just give me a few minutes. If it's on this one, I can read it, as long as it's all on there, Steve. Wait, I've got it.
Ben, can you put that on the screen for us, please?
Okay, Small Business Saturday Proclamation. Whereas the government of Sanford, Maine celebrates our local small businesses and the contributions they make to our local economy and community. And whereas, according to the United States Small Business Administration, there are 32.5 million small businesses in the United States. Small businesses represent 99.7% of firms with paid employees. Small businesses are responsible for 62% of net new jobs created since 1995. And small businesses employ 46.8% of the employees in the private sector in the United States. And whereas 79% of consumers understand the importance of supporting the small businesses in their community on Small Business Saturday, 70% report the day makes them want to encourage others to shop small, independently owned retailers, and 66% report that the day makes them want to shop small all year long. And, okay, I gotta find my spot now. Whereas 58% of, oh wait, you're gotta go down a little bit because I'm in the way. Thanks, right there. I'm sorry, whereas 58% of shoppers reported they shopped online with a small business and 54% reported they dined or ordered takeout from a small restaurant, bar, or cafe on Small Business Saturday in 2021. And whereas Sanford, Maine supports our local businesses that create jobs, boost our local economy, and preserve our communities, and whereas advocacy groups as well as public and private organizations across the country have endorsed the Saturday after Thanksgiving as Small Business Saturday. Now therefore, the City Council of the City of Sanford, Maine does hereby proclaim November 26, 2022 as Small Business Saturday and urge the residents of our community and communities across the country to support small businesses and merchants on Small Business Saturday and throughout the year. And it's signed on behalf of the City Council of the City of Sanford and the Village of Springvale. Do I have a motion to approve? Councillor Hanselman.
So moved, Madam Mayor.
Do I have a second? Councillor Brink.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor by a show of hands? That is unanimous. Thank you. Thank you all for your patience. Okay. 22-522-01, ordered to review and approve a proposed ordinance pertaining to Knox boxes for multi-unit residential buildings. This item must be read on 2 separate occasions, and this is the first reading. So this is the opportunity for the council to comment, ask any questions, and debate. Councillor Hurley, Deputy Mayor Hurley.
First of all, I did find the information in this section, not in the other
Right.
section, but it should be in the public hearing section. I'm just going to say I was in support of this because I do know how important it is for the fire department. Most often, it's the EMTs who need to get into a building to save a life. I've had tenants ask me about this as they're elderly and they want to feel the security of locking their door, but know that if there's something happens in the night, that someone can actually get in to help them. So I think this is a great ordinance. And you know, I'm not usually the one to add on for requirements to people. Everybody knows that. So I think the fact that I think this is a great idea should tell people how often it's been used and how often it's been life-saving for people that I know. So thank you.
Any other discussion by the council? Councillor Martell?
I just had a quick question for the sake of question, I guess. So it says any building with 3 or more units. I'm assuming there aren't really any, all of these units would be like rentals. I can't imagine there'd be any buildings where they'd be owner occupied.
Absolutely could
Are
be
there?
owner occupied, absolutely.
Okay.
One of them, one of the units, but 3 units. Pretty sure. Chief Benatti, did you want to comment on that?
Maybe the chief can comment.
So, Counselor, just so I'm correct on what you're asking, can you just repeat the question?
I just want to make sure we're not requiring this for people's houses that are maybe like a duplex style house, but maybe have 3 or something. Are there any instances where this is not a commercial situation, like a rental unit?
This would pertain to anything that is a triplex or above, or thing, which is mostly all the rental units. And of course, there are a number of units in town where there's multiple buildings. Some of them are the East Side Village and that sort of thing, and as well, when we have in the past only had 1 Knox box and it's on building A, and the incident is on building Z, it makes for a lot of difficulty in doing that sort of stuff. So that's the reason why attaching 1 to each building. So our response will be quicker by just going to the building in question because it comes in by our address. And that's the point being. We're not trying to incur any undue hardship on anybody. It's more of a, like we said before in some of the backup information early on was, go price a door right now at Lowe's. And if you can get a door,
Right, and then the 6 or 8 weeks to wait for it to be installed. So
Exactly.
I get
So-
that.
So to be clear, if it's a 3-unit building, even if it's owner occupied, it needs a knock box.
Correct, because it's still a 3-unit building. Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other discussions? Deputy Mayor
I just want
Hurley.
to make a quick comment. I mean, I don't even know what the requirement was at the time, but they actually didn't know, I think I told this at the subcommittee, but they didn't know that one of my units, there was a Knox box just down the street. So they destroyed the door. But, which is fine, they got to the person that they needed to get to. But after that, I thought it was a nice, cheap investment to get these little signs that said, Knox box is at. and then tell them, like, and it's just a few steps down, because it's just the nature of my building, which is why I had to do it. But so it is, the chief is right, it does save money, and it does save lives.
And just to put a little caveat forward too, Fire Marshal Carter looked for and found a grant that we're going to be applying for that will allow us to, it's through the Knox company, and it's supported, I believe, by AARP, and for up to $10,000 towards this sort of Knox box for residents that can be used for individual residents as well. So this will be a no-cost item for those who qualify for that sort of thing. If we get it, and it's a no-match grant, it would be 100% paid for.
Which will be peace of mind for the family, that you guys can
Exactly.
get in case of an
Yeah,
emergency.
so we're always looking to try to we bring something forward, but we're trying to help people out, not just trying to incur them a cost, so.
It's great to hear. So just, Steve, this will be, this one does not have to go back to subcommittee, so it'll be on the next agenda for the second reading.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Just wanted to make sure everybody understood that. Okay. 22-535-01, order to review and approve the proposed amendments to an ordinance titled Sanford Drug-Free Zone. This item will be read on 2 separate days. This is the first reading. Any discussion by the council? This was obviously at subcommittee and passed on to the council with the subcommittee approval. Councilor Hanselman.
So just to be clear, that safe zone is in this ordinance as well as the smoking and tobacco use?
Yes, drug-free,
So-
yes. They just had to separate them the way that we voted on them.
Oh, I mean, the list of parks will have to be updated in both of
Oh,
these? Yeah.
Yes,
Just,
yes, they'll all go back to
Okay.
make, before, these three will definitely go back and make sure that they're totally updated.
thank you.
Chief left already, but yeah, that'll happen, right? Okay. So we did, okay, so no other discussion? Then I'm going to go on to the next one, which is 22-537-01, order to review and approve the proposed amendments to an ordinance titled Parks, Schools, Malls, and Cemeteries. This item will be read on 2 separate days. This is the first reading. I don't think, unless somebody feels compelled to speak, we pretty much we understand what's going to happen. These you won't see until they go back to subcommittee. 22-536-01, order to review and approve the proposed amendments to an ordinance titled Smoking and Tobacco Use. This item will be read on 2 separate days. This is the first reading. Any more discussion? Okay, seeing none, then we will see that eventually. 22-532-01, approve the bids for general structural engineering consulting services from Thornton, Tomasetti Incorporated, and Wright Pierce Incorporated pursuant to the request for qualifications dated August 15th, 2022. I'm going to turn this over, I think, to the city manager, right?
I'm going to ask Ian to speak on that, Director of Community Development. So Ian?
Yes, good evening. We have a need occasionally for structural engineering services on a consulting basis. We put this out to bid for an RFP. Matt Hill and I decided to select both firms, just to the case that possibly one firm may be not available, or we may want the services of the expertise of one firm. This will really maximize the benefit to the city. Matt has needs related sometimes to bridges or long-term projects that he has to test related to road construction. Sometimes these consulting services might be used for parks and recreation facilities, sometimes for structural analysis of buildings that we're dealing with, or and most notably, I'll say that I did put the bid packages in your council agenda so you could peruse the two firms, really world-class firms here, and have the potential to provide some insight into the redevelopment of the boiler building, for starters, in the Stenton Mill. And I'll leave my comments there. I don't know if, Matt, if you want to add anything.
Both firms that we looked at really have different strengths. So I think they will be called on at different times as we go through, the needs of the city. So I anticipate actually using both as part of this process.
And can I just ask, I'd like to just state the reason that we don't have an amount here is because it will depend on who you use in the firm and for what you're using them for. It just gives you the ability to decide that at that point. Correct?
That's correct, and it's a non-exclusive agreement.
Right.
So there's no reason that we need to work with them or assign any particular cost to those projects. But if we would have to identify a project that we would be using those services for.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I'll ask for a motion to approve, and then if there's discussion, we'll follow that with the motion. So, Counselor Brink,
So moved.
is there a second? Counselor Martell?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion by the council? Questions? Nope. Okay, then I'll ask by a show of hands, all those in favor? That is unanimous vote. Okay, 22-534-01. What was that? It sounded like a duck. It sounded like a duck
It's a
to me.
typical meeting on Zoom.
Okay, then, 22-534-01, authorize the disposition of public property, approximately 120 boxes of ISO 9001 certified coveralls, either to a negotiated price or dispose. Steve, did you just want to give a brief explanation before I ask for a motion?
Yes, so Ian Halsey, the Community Development Director, had acquired a significant amount of PPE as part of the processes for the city. We have Tyvek suits that were delivered in excess of what we ordered and or needed, and we are seeking approval to dispose of those. Ian, do you have any other further comment on that?
I really don't. I did just want to make sure that we're following the process as far as disposing of city property. We can make them available, and we will make them available to nonprofits and other government agencies, but it's entirely possible that we'll still have too many. We are expecting 2 pallets, and we were given 3.5 pallets. And so that's almost twice what we were expecting.
Okay, do I have a motion to approve? Counselor Brink?
So moved.
Do I have a second? Deputy Mayor Herlihy?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. I just want to state for the record that I've already been in contact with someone who does lead abatements and uses these and would be very interested and was ready to order some and held off because they would like to discuss acquiring some of them. And I know that there's quite a number when you figure there's 120 boxes of 25 each. That's a whole lot of suits. So I'm hoping that they will get well used. I would not want to dispose of them before we tried to see if there are people that can actually use them. Councillor Hanselman.
So, Mayor, they can reach out to me
Okay.
and figure out how to get them some.
Super. Councillor Hanselman?
And I just want to make sure that when the leadership team meets, we mentioned to the school department, they may have a use for them within the building trades perhaps, or, so as long as we mention that to them, please.
Right. Councillor Martell?
Yes, I was just curious if we'd reached out to, say, any of the local EMA, like York County EMA.
Oh, I'm sure that, yeah.
Oh.
I think everybody has more than they
All
need.
right, I would really like to see these not get just thrown
Right,
in.
well, I was very encouraged when I spoke to this one individual that is like, oh yeah, that's absolutely something that, and they were ready to order 500 suits because they go through a few a day with their employees. So yes, I think they will get well used.
Great, thank you.
But, so if you talk to anybody that's interested in them, we'll just send them Ian's way, okay? So we have a motion and a second. Any more discussion by the council? All those in favor by a show of hands? That is unanimous. Thank you. Oh, and here's the one that everybody here is waiting for. Okay, 22-500-01, order to review the status of the rail trail. So I'm assuming, I see Brady there. So Brady, you will present. I'm not going to ask. I'll tell you what, let's have a motion to discuss because I would really like us to have a discussion with whoever is speaking to us at the time.
Motion to discuss.
By Deputy Mayor Herlihy. Councillor Brink?
Second.
Have a motion and a second to discuss, okay. All right, let's discuss away. Brady, you're first.
All right, so within the packet, I submitted the things that we heard from over this ATV season, which was discussed after the rail trail policy adoption that our department would do. So prior to May 15th, we received 4 phone calls and complaints of ATVs out riding prior to the trail being open. This next part from May 13th to the 16th, I'm not going to read the entire email exchange. I summarized it, but it stemmed from the ATV club submitting a work order request form to do work on the rail trail. This is a fairly new protocol that was established prior to me starting so that the city was aware and could approve work being done on the trails. The ATV club fixed a big washout area across from Sherman-Williams where the trail crosses a stream. There's a little hill where the water runs down and then it banks right, and it was washing out that area where it flattened out and then entering the stream there. After they fixed that, they used their straight blade tow behind grader and pulled the edges of the trail into the middle, trying to create a crown. And then the ATV club also contracted out grading, addition of regrind material, and regrading to the stretch of Witham Street to Pleasant Street. So this is what prompted the email exchange between an anonymous person and myself and some other members of the Trails Committee. It was discussed that the rail trail policy adoption, that the Parks and Rec must approve the work. It was clarified that the ATV club followed the proper steps about doing this work. Some complaints were made that the grading work stirred up large rocks and made it almost impassable or impossible to walk, run, and bike. I walked this section of trail that was claimed to be the worst from Oak Street to Deering Pond, and that was with Lawrence, the Trails Committee Chair, and Brian DeRocher. We did see some loose rock and material, but this trail was still very passable for anybody on foot, bike, really anything, horse. So that's about it. That's about half of my document. I do want to make note of a couple of statements within this email exchange that it was brought to our attention that ATVs were and are actively using Hanson Ridge and Blanchard roads for whatever they want. They've also begun digging up and spinning their tires at the rail trail and McKeon Reserve Center Trail Junction, which is city property. And there was one more, that this anonymous person's experience while doing rail trail monitoring on his ATV is that folks did not negatively comment to them regarding ATV use. They'd open up after the fact that they were displeased when this person explained that they were on the Trails Committee and using their ATV for the sole purpose of surveying folks for their feelings regarding ATV use on the rail trail. That brings us to May 29th, where Hazen found that a gate lock was snapped. He put a temporary lock on the gate. From the picture, it looks like you have the original set of locks. One was a Knox lock so that anybody could get in there from the FD or PD. The post was also bent. So it looked like, from what Hazen thought, somebody tried to attach their rig and hook it up to the pole to pull it open because it was locked and they might not have been able to fit through the area. And then after that didn't happen, they cut the lock so that they could just move through. On June 6th, Robert Mongeau and Denise Collier, this was a complaint from the Witham to Pleasant Street stretch. And it's a noise complaint with also speed involved. They have called the police, but it doesn't seem like people are doing the 10 mile an hour along that stretch of road there. I reached out to the police as of June 9th, and on April 2nd, they had a complaint of ATVs on the trail. On April 23rd, ATVs were being unloaded prior to the trail opening. The ATVs were gone upon their arrival. And then May 25th, an ATV was using Oak Street to get to the rail trail. And then on July 1st, there was an anonymous message left on our answering machine. Someone along Deering Neighborhood Road, the house at the right of the start of the trail, cut their own path to enter the Vigu Trail, and then they connect down to the rail trail. And that's the Vigu Trail is a non-motorized trail. It was once barricaded, and then they moved the barricades and continued to use the trail, and they did report that to the police. And then the police report as of 10:25, on June 11th, someone was on Railroad Ave to get to the trail. They did not find any ATVs. On June 13th, there was a complaint of speed near Indian Ledge, which is that stretch between Witham and Pleasant Street. The officer checked the area and they didn't find anything. Excuse me. On June 21st, a caller was told to call 911 when they observed ATVs speeding on the rail trail. The officer checked multiple locations. No ATVs were observed. They checked the depot and there were no trailers. July 10th, between Mousom Street and Pleasant Street, there was a dirt bike speeding in the area. The officer was unable to locate. I also asked Officer or Lieutenant Allen how their patrols were going this summer, and he mentioned that they were only able to get out there a handful of times, being short officers, but when they were out there, they had positive contacts with ATVers, walkers, educating families on ATV safety, making sure proper ATV laws were being followed, and he was also able to train 7 additional officers in ATV safety, which will allow them to have more certified officers on patrol in the future. And lastly, Lauren Macelas, our animal control officer, was out with a group of horses on 10:30 between noon and 3, and they encountered multiple ATVs between Deering Neighborhood Road and the other side of Hanson's Ridge, most of which they found were okay once they talked with them. But there was one group that they did encounter, a young boy less than 10 years old, she thought was speeding down the trail on a small dirt bike. They did not heed to their signals or stop until she finally put the horse directly in the path. And then he would not stop revving his bike's engine until an adult male came up behind them on a four-wheeler. Behind him was an even younger child on a small four-wheeler and an adult female on a four-wheeler. Once she got them to shut down to the point that they could talk, she explained the rules. While doing so, the children kept trying to get around the horses on their machines. The adults said nothing, but did wait for them to go by before they sped off. And then she does recognize how the ATV Club has done multiple PSA pieces on Facebook when encountering, horses, and that the Trails Committee has put signage up as to the right of way. And yeah, that's about it. So that's what we found from after the rail trail policy was adopted in April. I honestly forget the date that the trails opened. I think it's May 15th or so. And that's what we found over the course of the last few months.
Thank you, Brady. Counselors have any questions of Brady? Counselor Hanselman.
I have a few things I want to address, but specific to Brady's presentation. Brady, did we actively solicit requests from community members that use that trail just for their general experience? I understand we're looking at complaints that were received, but I'm not seeing any feedback on positive experiences or just general comments on the trail system. Was that work done?
No. I was just instructed to keep track of what we heard. So if we were to have heard positive feedback, we would have included it in this document. But as you know, you don't typically hear the positive stuff.
Counselor Termath.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. Brady, good evening, and great job today. So thank you for all you did. I just want a quick question. Are you actively working with the ATV Club? Because, I mean, it seems to me that they've been doing a lot of, PSA work. They've been out there active, cleaning up, educating riders. So are you working hand in hand with them by any chance?
Yep, I don't know how active the definition of that is, but as I'm sure you'll hear from Matt in a few minutes, we talk probably, I don't know, twice a month at least. We've applied in collaboration with them for a municipal ATV grant that has provided money for ATV trails. And that's what covered the stretch of Witham to Pleasant Street as well, which was close to 10 grand this year.
Okay, thank you very much, Brady.
Councilor Martell.
Yes, thank you for your presentation. I just had a quick question. I noticed that one of the reports mentioned that no signs were seen. Do we have any sort of speed limit signs that are up on some of the major entrances? And if not, is that something that's in the works?
At major entrances, I don't know. I do know that there are speed limit signs up along the entirety of the trail. How often, I can't give you a confident answer.
Okay, thank you.
Deputy Mayor?
Quickly, Brady, where they come through from Witham Pleasant area, is there still a way to get through, or is that in threat of being blocked? Or maybe the city manager will have to answer that question. But, the Bruno property area?
Yes, it's our understanding that they've made an application to build another structure in there, and upon the construction of that building, that access would be lost across that lot.
So essentially, going from Main Street, going from Pleasant Street to Main Street will be lost. There'll really be no place to park on Main Street to get to Oak Street, or no parking on Oak Street to speak of to get to Hanson's. So there really is going to be a blocked ability to use this trail in the near future. So is that correct? I mean, that's what I'm hearing. That's what I've been starting to hear, which is one of the reasons for this conversation, is to start fleshing out what our future on these trails are going to be. I have a comment, I guess, not really a question for Brady, but I rode the bike on the trails this summer, and I watched this deterioration of the surface. So, and it's not necessarily about the ATVs and the way they're because I met some good ones, I met some bad ones. So as they're riding, you can see the weight of the vehicle pushing off layer after layer. So at this point, from my observation, there's the small rocks, which are painful, like when you're on a bike, to try to circumnavigate. But I have noticed that it's gotten down to the layer that includes bigger stone. So ATVs do significant damage that require a significant amount of maintenance and money every year. And this, I see this because it's so downtown as something that everybody should be able to walk to and use and feel like they can use, unlike where ATVs can go on the outskirts of the community and have trails out there. But anyway, I think this trail is very close to just naturally ending up having to end, because if we lose that connection, there's really no place for people to come and use it as a destination spot, which they've claimed for years. Then it's just going to be people coming in from Lord knows where and racing through our downtown when they could instead choose a different path.
Brady, did you wanted to answer? I saw you had your hand up, so.
Yeah, unfortunately, I was at my first site plan review meeting at roughly 8:45 this morning and promptly left that. But I did speak with Beth afterwards, and to the best of my understanding, there's no real easements in place, but it sounds like the owner would be potentially open to keeping the trail open at 18 Witham. And that, I mean, without anything actually in place, and I could have also misunderstood, but that was the gist that I've got after speaking with Beth.
For ATVs, or?
It seemed like they would keep the trail open as is for now.
But isn't one of the houses like right in the
The foundation can't be much more than 5 to 10 feet from the trail itself.
Which would be untenable. Counselor Hanselman.
Thank you. I had a question, Brady, in regards to the rail trail budget. I know we're just heading into that season, and maybe Steve can answer this, but what budget, if you have the information, do we have set aside for rail trail maintenance? And then of that, how much is the ATV club or ATV-related grants helping offset that? Do we have that info, Steve? I'm just curious.
I can give you a rough one if you don't mind. Typically, the last few years, it looks like the city has given the Trails Committee $20,000 or so to do work, but that's not just solely on the rail trail. So that's when the ATV club and the municipality have applied for a grant to help with work dedicated solely to the rail trail in the sections that need to be addressed. And I can say for this year, that Witham to Pleasant Street stretch was, I believe, $9,800 that went solely into the rail trail.
Any other discussion by the council? Then I just have a few comments before I open it up and allow the public to comment and speak. And we will then come back and deliberate at that point. But I just want to say that the deputy mayor and I did ride on the rail trail, and I had never early in the season.
It got a lot worse.
And I had never been by Littlefield Pond, which is a beautiful area, but truthfully, I wouldn't ever walk there the way it is right now or the way it was then, just because I don't know how much work you'd have to put into it that then it would be ruined very soon afterwards, because it's a natural place for whatever people are on. It's a natural place to sit and enjoy after you've been walking a while. And what happens is the ATVs they move around, they park, and it's just, I don't know that we have enough money to rehabilitate those areas every single year. When you go and walk on some of our other trails that we don't allow motorized access to, and they are just pristine. I know that even in the winter, they're easy to walk on, and in the winter, people ski on them, and there are no snowmobiles on those. Well, there's also no snowmobiles on those either. I'm just pointing out to you that the issue has been that we can pour enough money into this, and my concern is that seeing seeing how long it is and seeing what happens the further out you get, that it just deteriorates progressively till you get to the Lebanon line. And that is an observation that I had not had the opportunity to make, and I was really surprised at the amount of damage that's done by motorized vehicles. So Brady, did you have anything else that you want to add before I allow the public to speak?
No, I'm good. Thank you.
Raise your hand, come on up. I'd like to know who you are and where you live, please. And I'll give you, I think it's 3 minutes, and we'll just try to move it along. Thank you.
Matthew Leggett. I'm the president of the Sanford, Maine ATV Club, but I live in Lebanon. I'll try to get it through in 3 minutes. So we were asked to form in 2018. Instead of going through this, I just want to address all the concerns that were brought up. The money thing, you're right, the town doesn't have the money to fix it. The club is offering money to fix it. We've been offering to grade that trail for 4 years. Brady has been a blessing to work with. He is so easy to work with. We appreciate Brady huge because we were able to accomplish work this year. We will pay to have that graded every year. If the council wants it done twice a year, I'm sure the state would pay for it. We need the ability to fix it. We hear complaints about the trail and it deteriorating. For 4 years, we've been trying to fix it. This is the first year, again, Brady has this dust on Witham Street. We've complained about that since we formed in 2018. We couldn't fix it. This year, we're like, let's regrind it. $10,000, the state's like, do it. And we did it, done. If grading is an issue, we will grade it twice a year, not a problem, professionally. Have somebody come in. We just use the grader behind a four-wheeler. That's the best we could do because we have to write the grant before May 15th, and we didn't have the ability to put that into the grant. But if that's something that we can do, we're all for it. It's been difficult because the state, for them to constantly hear that this trail is up to be closed down, to put a ton of money into it. But we want to. I sent Brady pictures of bridges that they did on a rail trail. Beautiful, wide, 9-foot bridges, board solid so the equestrians like it. I'm like, can we do this to the rail trail, the Carpenter's Crossing? And he presented it to the Trails Committee. It hasn't gone beyond that yet, but we would love to do that. Probably cost $20,000 or $30,000, no problem, we will pay for it. Widening gates, those gate pictures you saw earlier, those were pictures I took. I saw that lock broken. That wasn't dubbed by the Trails Committee, that was me. That was my hand in the photo. That wasn't by a four-wheeler, that was by a truck. And we all agreed it was by a truck. There's other photos that are included with that show the truck marks pulling that gate open. We are trying so hard as a club to meet any demands by the council. We just need the ability to do it. We want to be able to fix the trail. The issue by Witham Street is okay. Even if that gets closed off, we're allowed 1,500 feet legally. We measured that out already, so we can get around that. It would be a big issue for the snowmobiles, and the snowmobiles smooth that, not grade, pack the snow, whatever. When they pull the sled behind the snowmobile. Groom, that's the word. So they groom the trail, and I know a lot of people have talked about enjoying that on the rail trail for motorized use. They use their skis after the snowmobile's groomed, so losing that to snowmobilers and that not being groomed anymore would be really bad. We did put in $10,000 this year when the issue by Hanson's Ridge and Deering Pond was an issue 2 years ago. We paid $16,000. That new beautiful section, that's us, that's our money. And we put in the beaver deceiver, we paid for that. The Trails Committee got the contractors lined up, we paid for it. We don't mind paying for the stuff, but we just need the ability to do it. We hear the problems, we need the ability to fix them. So if there's guidance through Brady, or if you guys decide what needs to be done, we will do it. We just need the okay to spend the money. There was $1 million this year that didn't get spent from the ATV fund. $1 million. That's a ton of money, and they want Southern Maine ATVs to continue to flourish. It's a sport that a lot of families go out and enjoy with kids and stuff. So it's, we're trying our best. There are issues. A lot of the issues raised, we're not even on the trail. We're not the trail police, but we try our best with social media posts, trail cams, whatever we can do to make people comfortable with ATVs. Even though we're not the police and it's not our job and most clubs don't do it, we try. We give it our best shot because we want the trails to stay open. So, I think you'd be taking away a lot from this community by removing the trail from ATVs. I know there's 1,000 ATVs that were registered. That was numbers from 2018, but there was 1,000 ATVs between Sanford and Lebanon that were registered. And we all use the rail trail, we all stop at the depot, we all gas up there, and it's a lot of people that take something that they really love away from them, especially when they don't, if you're a kid, you don't have a trailer. You can't trailer out to Waterboro or wherever. You're riding the rail trail to get out to Lebanon. Our first task was to build that trail from the rail trail out to the power line, which we did the first year that we formed as a club, because that was what the council asked us to do. So we got the ATVs out of town. I hope you guys think about that. Think about, we're just a bunch of volunteers trying our best to make everyone happy. And, we're one of the few clubs that figured out how to use grants and get money from the state. We have a good relationship with Brian Bronson, who disperses the grants, so he's willing to spend the money. Adam Rice is our trail inspector. He's been down several times. I believe he's on the Zoom call right now, but he's the trail inspector for the state. So I hope you guys take that into consideration.
Thank you, Matt. Okay, anybody else? You want to ask one question?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Matt, just a quick question. I happened to be driving by the depot parking lot, I guess probably a Saturday afternoon or something like that, and I was kind of amazed at the number of trucks and trailers and things like that, you know. But in terms of communication, this is what I'm getting at. Do you have a sense of how many ATVers are I mean, either they're Sanford members or they're club members, however we want to think of it, and people who come a distance to come to ride in Sanford? Do you have a feel for that?
How many that come from away to ride?
Yeah. I mean, is
I would
it
say
50-50? Is it 75-25 or?
that's tough to say. In the beginning of the riding season, everyone's been waiting all winter to go. So on a weekend, probably opening weekend, you could have 500 machines out. The following weekend, 200. But as the summer goes on, I would say we have 50 to 100 between Saturday and Sunday that come from away to park there at the depot. I couldn't tell you how many in Sanford have wheelers. There is a registration that they have to go through in Sanford, so I would venture some 500-600 in Sanford that register their machine here.
Yeah. So going back to communication, these people that travel a distance, and I'm not trying to, you know, pick one over the other or anything like that.
No.
There's people that travel a distance. Do you get a sense that they are truly aware of the rules and speed limits and things like that when they come to Sanford?
So my sense so far, being with the club for 4 years, is that normally our issues are with people who live in town. And it's because most of the locals know the trails, the old trails that they used to use that aren't ATV trails or come through backyards, or the VIGU trail, the people living on Deering neighborhood that are coming over. That's the issues we're running into. When people are from away, they don't have riding in Massachusetts. They come here and they see the signs and they generally follow them. So far, from my experience, we've had good experience with people from away. And then the riding on public streets, which is usually the nuisance, are usually people that live around here. And it's just because it's been away for a long time, and we're still working on education. We made a lot of good safety videos with the Trails Committee. We're very vocal on social media, trying to speak with others about the reasons why that you have to ride safe, slow. I think, Guy, are you coming up? Did you? No. So we did 3 safety classes this year in Sanford at the Nassau Community Center. We were able to educate 62 through the safety class. That doesn't include their parents or guardians that came with them. Also, a fire department came. So we had, I would say, over 100, 150 people that we were able to educate this year, which Guy Picard is our safety officer. He was trained from the state of Maine, and that was a really good thing we were able to do for the community, because we had a lot of local people that now their kids understand, and we talk a lot about loud exhaust or going slow on the rail trail, being multi-use and whatnot. And there are, the speed limit thing, there are speed limit signs. There, as you come off the road onto the trail, I believe they were put up by the Trails Committee. We put reflector signs on all of them this spring because we were asked to do that.
So let me say, first of all, thanks for what you're doing, okay? That's just coming from me. Thanks for what you're doing. The other thing is, do you see this trending one way or the other? I mean, do you see the education, the fact that there is now a club, is it getting better? Is it staying the same? I mean, what's your sense of that too, Matt?
So, and again, I'm sure it's biased because I ride and I run the club, but I took the time to speak to people on the trail one day. I just rode the trail back and forth on the side-by-side, and I would stop. One lady let me take a video of her because somebody had said the speed of 25 was too much. So when I approached her, I videoed my speed. I got off my machine, and I said, "Did you feel, that I was coming too fast? Were you nervous about it?" And she said, "No, that seemed fine. It didn't seem like, you didn't scare me." She had a kid and a dog with her, and she was good with it. But I encountered lots of people that day. Nobody had anything negative. Well, there were negative comments about some riders, but they said they've seen a great improvement since the club has been around, that people have slowed down, because when people think they're doing something illegal or they're not supposed to, they tend to go faster. And when they know they're supposed to be there and everything is good and there's speed limit signs, they tend to settle down and do what they're supposed to. So with the added signage, the speed limit signs, there's been a big improvement on the rail trail.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I know that there's one person on Zoom with their hand up still, Dennis Jalbert.
Yes.
Do you have a video that we can put up?
Yeah. Yeah. Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Well, we can hear you, but we can't see you.
Can you hear me? Can you see me now?
Nope.
You
know the little camera, it might have a line through it? Click on that.
Hold on.
That's okay. Why don't you just tell us where you're from, and then I'll let you, and then speak, and tell us what you want to say.
Can you see me now?
No, we cannot. We see a little picture that I really can't tell what it is.
All right. I'm new at this. But anyways, if the rail trail is taken away, we've already lost the power line for the most part. So if the rail trail is taken away, we've already lost the power line, like I said. We've lost the access to the High Street end. So if we lose the rail trail, there's pretty much no riding at all left in Sanford. So if anyone that owns four-wheelers in Sanford needs to now trailer their wheelers to other towns, which you're gonna have a lot of four-wheelers. They're still gonna ride the rail trail. Even if you shut that rail trail, you're gonna have to lock up them gates, weld them things shut, because they're still gonna jump that rail trail. There's over, I would say, 300 to 400 members of the ATV club that I don't believe you're going to be able to stop them from riding that rail trail, even if you shut it down, because that's the only ride Sanford has right now is the rail trail. And if you shut it down just because of a couple or a few people that at the beginning of the year was not waiting for May 15th opening day to ride the trail, then that's wrong. And I don't know, it's, you guys, Sanford's gonna lose a lot of money that the four-wheelers bring in, because everyone's gonna bring their wheelers to other towns to ride.
Thank you. Dennis, could you just,
Yeah.
1 second. Dennis, where do you live?
Sanford.
Thank you. Counselor Brink has a question.
Yeah.
Are you in favor of keeping the trails as they are, or are you not? I'm really confused by your statements, because it sounds like you're absolutely threatening the city, and I don't think
No,
that
no,
sounds...
I'm not threatening the city. I'm
Well,
just saying.
you just did.
It's very impossible to close that rail trail to keep four-wheelers off it. I mean,
But I got
No.
the feeling that the gentleman who was just speaking, who you're president, right, of the Trails Committee?
Yeah.
I felt that he was trying to get everybody to obey the law. And what
oh
you're
yeah,
saying
I do.
is they're
I'm
not
a
going to
member
obey
of
the law.
I'm a member of the ATV club, and I'm out every year on maintenance day helping to clean up these trails.
Well, you're not helping me as a counselor. You're actually making me feel like voting against it at this point.
I'm sorry.
The first
That's-
gentleman made me feel good. Now you're not.
That's not what I'm trying to do.
That's okay. Let me just keep going. No, I think he said what he said, and I think there are a lot of people who think that if we close the rail trail, they'll still use it. So I think he's told the truth as he sees it. So I don't think there's any explanation needed for that, because...
That's not what I was trying to say.
Okay, what were you trying to say? We shouldn't close it because...
No, what I'm trying to say, if it's closed, Sanford's not gonna have any riding, and everyone's gonna have to move their trailers to other towns.
Okay, thank you, Dennis. I appreciate that. Yes, just get up, tell us who you are and where you live.
Oh, sorry. Hello, everyone. My name's Daniel Norwood. I am the secretary of the Sanford Maine ATV Club. I'm from Acton, Maine. So I want to thank you, folks. I know we have this meeting in April, and I appreciate you giving us this kind of trial period. With that being said, kind of like what Matt said, in the past 4 years, we haven't had the greatest cooperation with the city or the backing. In the April meeting, I think we had a lot better guidance into the instructions of what you folks wanted us to do and kind of the work you wanted to see. And I think through the report that we saw earlier that we have seen some progress. But it's only been a one-year term. It's only been, less than a year that we've been able to work on this progress. I think that progress has been done. And I think that if we can continue the work that we've been doing together, that we can see even greater improvement. In regards to one of the examples that was given was in regards to a 10-year-old on a dirt bike not obeying kind of the rules for the animal safety patrol officer. One thing that's great about having an ATV club that's organized is that we limit the negative interactions through our education. But there are going to be those outliers who are not part of the club that we have no authority to tell them what they can or cannot do, who are going to break rules, are the ones who are going to go off the trail despite the work that we do because they may not listen to us. But having an organization like the ATV Club decreases that. Like Matt had said, we had 62 youth who got trained in this past year. And if you come to one of our safety courses, which I encourage each and every single one of you, you're all welcome to come to one of our meetings or our safety courses or even one of our days where we do cleanups and see the work that we do firsthand. 62 youth who otherwise would not have learned how to properly deal with animals, with pedestrians, people walking the streets, how to interact with people. That education is going to take some time. It's not something that's going to happen overnight. I know that there's a lot of things that we wish with the snap of our fingers we could see change and improvement, but that's going to come with the continued support of the city to have that backing. One of the problems for us as an organization is having that kind of authority in regards to saying to our members, well, we're going to be around for a long time, we're going to have access to these trails. It's hard for them to believe that and support this organization when we're constantly coming back up here having to defend what we're trying to do, even though we're working really, really hard. If any of you follow our page or even in part of our Facebook group, the officers, even each members as a whole are constantly telling one another, we need to be respectful of landowners, of the rules, of the signage, because we know what the city wants. We know that it's important for every citizen in Sanford and the surrounding areas to want to utilize these trails. I'm a member of both Kiwanis and Rotary, and I have talked to some of those members, and some of them have told me that since the ATV Club has started, they have seen a huge increase in respect for walkers and bicyclists and horse riders on the trails. And like we heard, we don't hear the positive messaging, we always hear the complaints. But I do hope you take in consideration how willing as an organization that we are to work alongside the city, because it is very attractive to so many people. We have people from New York City, from Boston, from Vermont, who come up to do the work that we're doing, and we're really trying to work on our outreach to the city. This past Halloween, we participated with Curtis Lake in their trunk or treat. We had ATVs there to help educate people to know that we exist. We're hoping next year to do more, give out informational brochures and stuff so they know about the rules and the regulations, and we're looking to do more community outreach. But we can't do that if we constantly are being threatened to have access taken away and our organization has nothing to work on. Like Matt said, we are more than willing to put the money up. We have so many people who volunteer their time on weekends to help fix these trails. So I think that we are moving in the right direction, and I hope that you allow us to continue to make this progress, to really make sure that these trails are accessible to everybody in the city of Sanford. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. I'm going to go to somebody on Zoom. Diane Connolly, you had your hand up? Just tell us where you live.
Yes, ma'am. This is Diane Connolly. I live in Springdale. I'm a landowner, and I'm sorry I do not have Zoom or a photo. Can you hear me okay?
We sure can.
I want to give a different aspect of something that you don't know about. During COVID, in the fall of 2020, a member of the ATV Club was riding the trails behind my property off the railroad bed, and he stopped, and he asked me what I thought about things, if things were improving. I said, for the most part, they are. He came back to my residence, and he did talk to us and asked us if things were improving since we talked. I said they were. I have had problems, and other people have had problems. I've sent you emails, pictures, you've seen it. However, this spring, when the trail behind Railroad Avenue that goes from Shaw's Ridge to Pleasant Street was annihilated with storms down trees, the ATV club came in and cleaned all that up. So there's your positive. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Okay, anybody in the audience that would like to speak? I'm just going to go back and forth. I still have somebody else on. I know you want, go ahead. Wait, Hazen, because I know you said you wanted to be last, so I'm going to keep going until there's nobody else. So yes, sir. Just tell us your name and where you live, please. And then I have somebody else on Zoom that I see their hand up, and I will call on them next.
Good evening, everybody. My name's Jeff DeWaron. I live in Springvale, right on the rail trail off of Howard Street. I currently own and operate a power sports shop over in Alfred, Maine, JD's Motorsports. I can tell you right now that, I base a lot of my stuff off of facts and data. A lot of the stuff we're hearing tonight there's a lot of fact to it, but there's a lot of gut feeling. We don't know what the estimated costs of these repairs are going to be. It's just, we know it's going to be a lot. Let's get some professionals out there and look at, the areas. I have talked to Matt a few times about where you guys are talking about the ruts on Deering neighborhood. I ride out there with my little guy all the time. We're always riding. It's a family thing. I've offered to drag it. I have a tractor myself. Every time I've offered, it kind of got left in the dust. We want to make it right. Just on an average ride, let's say I leave from my home, go to the depot, I have 4 machines. We register all 4, $71 a piece. Then we also did the ATV course, which was fantastic. My daughter took that. Go to the depot. I probably spend, every time I stop there, just for a day ride to get out of Sanford using the rail trail, over $100 and something right there, just in fuel, buying food, beverages for the kids, We bring our fishing poles. We go down to Deering. We fish there. We go all the way down to Chucky's land there at the end. When we hit Lebanon, we fish that pond. I even have pictures of a canoe strapped to my side-by-side. We were able to go and canoe and kayak Deering, which, I'm not in the best of shape in the world. I wasn't going to drag my canoe all the way out there, but I had access because I was able to utilize an ATV to get my stuff out there. Ran into a bunch of people that thought it was fantastic. They're like, hey, we're going to do that too, just to utilize what we have. I myself, I can tell you, we went through our books. I've serviced just by myself. We run a mom and pop shop. It's my wife that runs the office. I'm the tech out back. I'm kind of the business in a way. I've had my hands on at least 200 plus machines just this year. 1 year in business. I just started last November. Just hit a year. That will totally crush us if we lose a lot of this access. This is all locals, that are bringing their machines to us because we ride the trails, we try to maintain the trails, we promote it. We're always putting updates on what's going on. This club, I will tell you, knocked it out of the park this year. You guys might not see it, but I do. I've ridden these trails since I was this big. We grew up in Sanford. And back then, everything was in the gray. You kind of had a free-for-all. There was no policing or no one maintaining it. For years, we were riding trails that were technically not ATV trails. Then the town came to us and said, hey, you need to get a club. Let's make it legit. These guys have been awesome. Opening day, we had, 30-something volunteers. We built 3 bridges. We graded a lot of areas that were bad. That was just one day we did that, 30-something volunteers. If this gets shut down, we're going to lose all that free manpower, pretty much. It's really going to hurt the trail system, if you want to say. That main artery to get out of town is huge for us. It's, 5 or 6 miles, I think, roughly. And I do bike a little bit with my son. We hike the trails. I've done the marginal way trails. We used to do that. My stepfather years ago had a lot to do with a lot of that stuff, Jeff Tetherington. When that marginal way stuff started years ago, I remember there was no signs, no nothing, and then they created this awesome thing. There's miles of hiking, biking trails that are in fantastic shape with no ATV traffic. All we're asking for is 6 miles to share with everybody, and it's a great opportunity. You know, I've also seen other people that have disabilities that can't physically walk out there. They take their ATVs to Deering and enjoy the view. That's gonna be crushed to them, you know? They're not gonna have an opportunity to get out there. It's 6 miles, that's all we're asking. That's all I have to say, thank you very much.
Thank you. Ryan Harvey, you're on Zoom. You're up next. You're still muted, sir.
Oh, sorry, I was on mute. Sorry, can you hear me now?
We can. Just tell us who you are and where you live.
Yep, Ryan Harvey. I live on South Sanford. Couple of things. A question of cost, and like the previous gentleman said, was talking about volunteers. Matt mentioned volunteers as well. I am one of those volunteers. I donated time with my tractor this spring in putting up the new signs behind the depot and on the other end on the power lines. There's more work. Like Matt was saying, the club is willing to pay for the repairs to the rail trail. I am one that is willing to volunteer my time and use my tractor, stuff like that. So Matt's talking about money that he can come up with to get these repairs done. I'd like to mention that there's plenty of volunteers that are willing to donate their time and their own money to make these repairs as well. So consider that when talking about cost. Like I said, I live in South Sanford. There are some trails in South Sanford that have been disconnected with the closing of a property off of High Street. I can no longer access the trails. You know, I can't go from my house to Lebanon like I used to. I have to trailer to the depot like everybody else. One of the things that I've noticed since the speed limit signs have gone up, people have done very well at adhering to those and not speeding off, not kicking up the dust. There's a lot of conversations on the Facebook page, the ATV Club's Facebook page, that really talks about these things, these issues, and tries to make people aware of the complaints of the neighbors. The other thing, just to, I'm sorry, I don't know the counselor's name with the flag behind him. He had asked the question about the out of town riders, and the Facebook page is really a good resource on and weighing on how many people from out of town are coming to ride our trails. There's all sorts of people from Massachusetts and from New Hampshire that post on there with questions about when are the trails going to be open, what are some places that they can travel to from the depot and such like that. There's a lot of conversation on the Facebook page, and it's all respectful. So that's all I had. I just wanted to talk my piece. Thank you.
Thank you. You can, did he mute it? Okay. Is there anybody else? Who is that? Oh, Lee Burnett.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor Mastracchio and city councilors. I know you're in a really tough position. This is a problem that's been going on for years. I just have a couple of general observations. As a former member of the Trails Committee and former chair and now current member of Cycle Sanford Group. One is that there really is no such thing as a multi-use trail. I've been around the state, and every trail they call a multi-use trail is really an ATV trail that others use with varying degrees of inconvenience and danger. The dominant users dominate, and it's an ATV trail. The second observation is that as long as we have a trail that runs through, a motorized trail that runs through the village area, there's always going to be complaints. There's just no way around it. Matt said they've solved the dust problem. You should talk to the residents of Indian Ledge. There was maybe a little let up, but there was plenty of dust there this summer. And then another observation is that you can't rely on the ATV club to do all this maintenance. They say they have the resources, but they really don't. And their idea of grading is with a box grader, which will not crown the surface. The city really needs to, if you're gonna maintain this for all kinds of uses, the city has got to spend way, way, way more money than they have been spending. The level of the standard of maintenance that you need so that people on bicycles and walking can enjoy the experience is way higher than what an ATV finds completely acceptable. And I mean, we saw it after they graded it this spring. There was all kinds of rocks and, you know, it's not acceptable for most people what is completely acceptable for ATV use. So if you want to keep it as a motorized trail, you just got to spend way more money. And the city spent hundreds of thousands of dollars at parks, deservedly so, but you know, the Trails Committee gets $20,000 a year and a bunch of volunteers. You know, you need way more resources to solve these things. Anyway, that's my 2 cents.
Thank you, Lee. Anybody else in the audience? I don't have any other hands up on Zoom. I think you're the last person that wants to speak, Hazen, so come on up.
Member Strachio, Manager Buck, and Council. You know, I wrote down what I was going to say tonight because I didn't want to go into all this stuff that's been brought up.
1 second, Hazen. You got that person. Just step back just a little from the
Yes.
mic. Just
This
a
better?
little. There.
I mean, I could go on forever.
Wait, a little further.
For a lot of the stuff that's been heard here. I mean, they made a lot of points, but the fact is, there's been a lot of destruction on the rail trail. You know, they talk about them putting a lot of money in. What's the sense of throwing money in if it gets destroyed again? They talk about losing trails. Sure, they've lost trails. The reason they've lost trails is because they've destroyed them. They've destroyed trails on private property, and people don't allow them on. They've destroyed trails on the land trust. The land trust doesn't want them on there. The trail they created at the end of the rail trail is a disaster. It's all mud. Every one of their trails are mud, puddles, disasters. A section of land trust land near Deering Pond was destroyed a few years ago, an endangered wetland, ruts and everything in there. I mean, I can go on and on about that. They destroy all the trails. As far as money into it in their time, sure, they're bragging about they want to put, they've got the ability to put time and money in. How about the Trails Committee over the years? I mean, I've put thousands of hours in myself alone, a lot of the trail members, my equipment and everything over the years. But now we developed the trail for trail use, and now it's being destroyed. So I could go on and on about that. They want to open up the gates. The gates are set for states standard. If you want to open the gates, open them up. I mean, the vehicles they're driving through there are as large as a Jeep. There's tires on some of those vehicles bigger than my dump truck. Why not open it up? Let people go to Deering Pond. Let them go through everywhere. That's not what that is designed for. That's not what we developed the trail for. So they can go on and on about what they're doing and what they can do. We've done all that, and now they've come in, and sure, they've got vehicles. I don't know how many tell you they've got registered. Well, what about all the people that want to walk on the trail? There's as many or more. And every time that they go on there in the spring, the people that are there, I mean, I live up there. And I go down Hanson Ridge Road. When the ATVs aren't there, and there's 8, 10 cars, I can guarantee you, I've got pictures. But as soon as the ATVs come on there, there's 1 or 2 cars because they drive them off. Okay, so much for that. I could go on and on forever
about what's happened and about what they're saying. But this is my spiel to you. I come before you to speak on the rail trail because it is one of the greatest assets we have, and it should be protected for the future. This may be my final plea. My wife, Connie, told me, she stood behind me for 30 years on the trail, she says, and my family too, and she said, you know, you're fighting a losing battle. I'm not here tonight because I think I'm fighting a losing battle. I'm here not to take up your time or mine. I'm here because I feel that this rail trail has a lot to offer. After 30 years of devotion to the trail for Sanford Springville, I would not take your time otherwise to do it. I feel most qualified to make these statements to you because I started the Sanford Trails in 1999, and I was responsible for reclaiming sections of rail bed that had been given to the state. They were sitting there, the town never took them. We started the trails, we took that back. And for the Trails Committee, who took control of the right-of-way, rebuilt it, developed it, maintained it, and now we are trying to protect it. I have nothing against ATVs. They have their place. We have our trail. They should create their own trails. They're for their own specific use. The Trails Committee has dealt with this issue for years. We came to the council dealt with it. You asked for a committee to study. The study committee studied it. We came back to the council. You know, I've got a stack this high of correspondence over the last couple of years going back and forth about all this. But it's the same issue is there now as it was before. It's time to close the door. It's time to close the gate and settle this and take a vote on it and settle it. Next. In April of 2021, I submitted to you, the chair, Mr. Buck, and the council, and I hope the council saw it, a 2.5-page statement about the rail trail based on the majority of the Trails Committee's vote, but yet I did not want to commit the Trails Committee, so I submitted that as my own statement, and I hope everyone read it. I'm not going to repeat it tonight because it will take too long. The fact remains the same. It is our rail trail for the benefit of the citizens to have a peaceful place to walk, hike, jog, bike, horseback ride, and so forth. Not to be destroyed, not to be taken away. To see the outer doors at its best, nature at its best, and the serenity that it brings to all people. March 2022, I did a cost analysis of expenditures and expenditures going forward. First, we had to rebuild and redevelop the rail trail. We spent, and this wasn't all trails money, it was grant money too, we spent about $112,000 over the years to redevelop some of the trails that had been washed out, things destroyed, the stonework and so forth. Second, we developed, graded, and maintained the rail trail, and this did not include such things as ramps, gates, signs, parking, and other things. We spent about $47,000 to $50,000. Now, looking forward, if we fixed up the rail trail now the way it should be, the way our intentions was when we started any trail, the Mouse Way Trail, and we thought this would be the same thing when the Kiwanis started the Mouse Way Trail. If we want to bring that back to what it should be, we would probably have to spend over the next few years about $100,000 to $120,000 to make it right, because you go out there now and it gets destroyed. I was out there today, and where there are puddles, they dash through the puddles, and the puddles keep getting deeper, and the silts and everything get washed away. So it would cost about $122,000 to bring it back. But each year, we would spend maybe, the Trails Committee, $1,000 to $2,000 to go out there and fix it up a little bit. But with the ATV use, we're gonna spend $8,000 to $12,000 a year, and I don't care how much money they throw at it, it's still $8,000 to $12,000 a year to maintain it and bring it back. And it's gonna go on and on and on, and it's still gonna keep people off it. It's still gonna be an ATV deal, not a trail that we want. We could compromise, and I've suggested this before. The section of trail from their ATV trail on the power line to the depot is wide enough, could be split with a rail in the middle. They could have half of that, we could have half of the rail trail, and they could park at the depot, which they want to do, gas at the depot, eat at the depot, and go back to their trails. This we've offered, and this, I think, is a great compromise. This would prohibit motorized use on the rest of the trail, except for snowmobiles, because they really enhance the trail in the winter. They grade it, people cross-country ski, they can even walk on it in the winter, but it would prohibit other motorized use. Finally, this rail trail right-of-way is one of our great assets, just like our parks and any other recreation area, and it should be protected and preserved for the future. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Hazen. Can you just, before you go, can I ask you a question?
Yes.
Just explain that compromise again for me and for everybody that might,
Depot, 224.
I'm just trying to remember where that depot, from the depot.
From the depot towards Shaw's Ridge, where the ATV trail is, we could split that right down the middle. I've offered this before in the statement I sent you before, and they could have everything they want. Parking, gas, food, come there, go out of town on their trails.
And
Our trail.
And that's been discussed with the ATVs?
That was a substitute offer. It would be a good offer.
And what was the response?
The cost, we could split
Or no,
the
the
cost.
response from the,
I think they want the connection to Lebanon, and that it isn't, is there a connection to Lebanon going that way, coming round a different way?
I don't know where they go, but this would allow them to come from their ATV trail to the depot and back out, not to the Lebanon line, not on that side. That would be non-motorized the way it should be.
okay, all right,
Thank
thank
you.
you. Okay, yes, sir, you have your hand up? Just state who you are and where you live, please.
I'm Guy Picard. I'm from North Berwick. I'm the safety officer for the ATV Club. I'm also an instructor, volunteer instructor for the state of Maine. I can tell you a little bit about education, but first I want to address this. The part he's talking about actually is heading up towards Shaw's Ridge, towards High Street, which currently is a dead end. We're more interested in getting out to the power lines. Getting out to the power lines gets us into different places, more directions. Getting back to education. In the state of Maine, if you want to ride on an ATV between the ages of 10 and 16, you have to have completed a safety course, and you must ride with an adult. So we offer safety courses because we're trying to encourage safe behavior on the trails. This year we had 3 courses, as Matt said, and there were about 62 students. Last year we had a couple of courses as well, and what we found is when people are signing up through Eventbrite through the state, the first course filled up in 30 minutes. As soon as we said it was available, it was full. I say these numbers to indicate that it's a growing sport. It's getting bigger and bigger. We're doing our best to make sure that people have places to ride, places that their families can ride, because we're talking about kids taking these courses. An economic impact I can see is, like somebody commented when they went by the depot, it was full of machines. You're looking at an ATV that can cost $15,000 to $20,000. These are not kids who are riding these ATVs. These are adults who can afford it. They're looking to go places, they're looking to have fun, they're looking to have adventure. I think there's an opportunity for Sanford to make some benefits of this. I don't pretend to know how to do it. I'm not a businessman. I can relate that I'm from the town of Rumford, and I know Rumford just built a Best Western Plus in town, and built an ATV trail to get to it. I think they see the possibility, the economic value of it. I think the rail trail in Sanford gives an opportunity for ATVs to get to various businesses, and I think it's an opportunity worth looking at. Volunteer aspects, I love getting out and volunteering. I get out and I do canoeing, kayaking, hiking, and ATVing. The sports are not exclusive. I believe they can exist together, and I believe it's for the benefit of all. Thank you.
Thank you. Bill Pickering, you have your hand up and you're on Zoom.
Hi, good evening. Can you hear me okay?
We can. Just tell us where you live, please, and if you have video, it would be appropriate to put it on.
Understood. My name is Bill Pickering, working on the video. I live here in Sanford, Maine. I am a user of the rail trail. Have a family of 4. My son, my oldest son, took the ATV course last year. I didn't grow up around the use of ATVs at all, but you know, I've gotten into it, and the kids have as well. I just want to share, there's been a lot of discussion about different uses of the trail, and I wanted to share briefly, because I understand your time is important, my perspective on this. My son, 14-year-old freshman of Sanford High, has very much enjoyed the course and taken it to heart. We've taken many rides on the trail here in town, out towards Lebanon. We've done the fishing that many folks have talked about. We've encountered so many different individuals, walkers, runners, many bikers that I've had great conversations with, along with actually horseback riders. And that was the point that really stuck out with me this year. I've encountered a couple of horseback riders twice this year. And although I felt I knew what needed to happen when encountering those riders, I pulled off to the side. I shut my machine down, as I thought I should do, and kind of stood by and waited. It hit home with me when my son recognized the fact that he should take his helmet off, and we should actually be visible to the horseback riders and the horses to ensure their, you know, safe passing, for lack of other words. But there's been a lot of conversation about different uses of the trail, and I just want to point out that although there are many negatives that we do try to overcome as a community, and specifically as an ATV club that I've recently been a part of just in the last 2 years, I think it's worth noting that although there are many challenges that we encounter, there's a lot of positives that come from getting youth involved in the community in different aspects. Super strong family involved in youth athletics, and I compare a lot of the things in this organization, in the ATV organization, to things that have happened in youth athletics in this community. Losing the opportunity to explore on this rail trail and take the time with that and be a part of the community. Losing that opportunity with ATVs would be a great loss for the community, in my opinion. I think we need to continue to work together to try and make this work better. It's going to take a lot of effort, and I'll speak for myself and many members of the ATV group that we're willing to help, and we're willing to work towards the solution and mitigate the problems that are encountered throughout the year. Thank you for your time. I appreciate it. That's all I have to say on the matter.
Thank you, Bill. Okay, anybody else up? Hazen, you can, I'll give you 1 minute, okay? You're the last one, because then we've got to move this along and deliberate a little bit and vote. Go ahead, you can come up. You did say you wanted to speak.
That's all right.
You can. I won't deny you.
That's okay. I didn't elaborate on, you know, the rail trail. There's so many things out there. The dust destroys the plant life, endangered species that are out there, the run of turtles, the wildfowls being driven away, the animal life being driven away. And you know, if they love this trail so much, why don't they do like the other
do or want to do, put the ATV aside and walk out there and see how really beautiful it is and enjoy it the right way, the serenity and the beauty of it, and protect it. Get up for ATVs and take a walk out there. That's what it's for. That's what we developed it for.
Thank you, Hazen. Okay, I think we've had public input, and now it is our turn to deliberate, unless somebody, what we have is a motion to discuss. If somebody wants to make a motion, they can, and then we can discuss that motion, or we can just continue to discuss. Councillor Termath.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to make a point that the Vice President of the ATV Club requested a second rebuttal, but was denied, and Hazen was able to speak twice. So to make it fair, can we allow him to get back up if he wishes to say something else?
I mean, I really, I'll be honest with you, I think we have heard the flavor. Did you feel that there's something? No, that, I mean, I think that he's referring to you, Matt. And I mean, I just felt that you had your say fully and completely, but if there's something that you feel that you need to add,
I just wanted to clear up.
Well, then go ahead. I'll give you a minute.
So I just want to clear up Dennis Jalbert's comment. We deal with this a lot in the community. He's not threatening that the ATV club or club riders are going to do what's inappropriate. We deal with this on other trails that have been closed. Your people that break the laws now, and they already break the laws on Deering, whatever, they're going to continue breaking laws. The club members aren't. We're going to trailer up to Waterboro or trailer where we need to. But the rule breakers are still going to break the rules. And we want them off the trail. I know Sanford PD just got a brand new side-by-side. It's like 20 grand. It's beautiful. And I can't wait for the police to be more on the trail because their presence makes a huge difference. But we want to eliminate rule breakers as much as everyone else wants to because they make us look bad, and we don't want to look bad.
Thank you.
Yep.
Okay. I think we did actually know all of that you just said. I mean, I appreciated the fact that he was just generally using that comment that people were still going to break the rules. As they do, they speed, they do all the kinds of things that are against the law. Okay, councilors, comments? Deputy Mayor Herlihy first, and then I'll let, she had her hand
No,
up.
that's fine. So I will say right out front, I do respect the work of the ATV Club, 100%. I don't think this is about the ridership. I think I've had some good and some bad interactions with ATVers. I think this trail going through our community, I think the highly sensitive wildlife areas it goes through, I think the fact that it's so close to homes. I've talked to Bud Johnson, who everybody here respects highly, or anybody who knows him, and the reason it was closed down on CMP trails, I said, well, couldn't you have kept them on the trails? He said, Maura, the noise alone impacts the wildlife. There is so much damage done by the sounds, the ruts that they make. I think if we don't do something, this trail, if we leave it to the ATVers, and then we lose people who give up, like Hazen, we're gonna have a trail for ATVers right through the heart of our downtown that is gonna be completely destroyed for everybody else. I firmly believe this. I go to other trails, Dover, right through their downtown, along the most beautiful river, no motorized vehicles. It is a great trail. It is not ruined, and nobody in the town complains, and I'm sure there's a lot of ATV riders. I think there are plenty of places for ATVs to ride. I think through the center of dense community is not the place to do it. As I said, I don't know what to say to the ATV people. I don't think you can prevent the damage of a heavy-weighted vehicle on a trail. I don't think you can prevent people from going off trail into the mud. You do the best you can. I do have a lot of respect for what you do, and I'm looking at, you're getting cut off from trails that should have been perfect for ATVs. They've already seen the writing on the wall and said, no, you can't anymore. Here we have a trail that really is not designed for ATVs. There are thousands upon thousands of man-hours long before they made it perfect for ATVs, which they never intended, that Hazen and people who've already passed away and people who are still living, they put thousands of hours into these trails and lots of money. And they're watching their potential work slide downhill quickly because the damage will come. I mean, before long, you're not going to be here, you're not going to be here, you know, and it's going to continue to deteriorate. I don't see it staying in great condition. I mean, it's kind of shocking how few people here are from Sanford Springvale. There's many who are from away. Truthfully, I'm not sure there's much business into the community from this. The depot gets businesses, but they're in and out. They park, they ride, they come back, they get their gas, and they leave. I mean, it's the depot. So let's discuss the business that's actually benefiting. So I don't know if I'll win tonight. I think this should be an annual discussion, up and down, as based on what we see. I don't think it should ever be a permanent yay or nay, whatever but I'm going to make a motion that we make the trail.
So we have a motion and a second for discussion. Councilors, raise your hands if you'd like to discuss. Councilor Stackpole.
I guess I got to call on somebody with some knowledge here. Is there a speed that can be limited? Let's just pick various. Maybe it doesn't have to be all the way through. But what I'm saying is there a way to set speed limits? I know they're difficult to enforce. That would solve some of the problems that we're talking about here in terms of the damage and the damage to wildlife and plant life and those.
Brady, can you speak to the speed limit, please? And then I'll let Kevin answer that as well. But Brady first, please.
Yeah, I think we did that this spring, and you're now seeing this up for discussion again. So I don't know what else we can do. We can post it. I'm not out there. I don't know if it is being followed, but I'm guessing. I know when we originally went through the rail trail policy, I believe we said 10 miles an hour. I think 15 miles an hour is more realistic because I don't believe Dave Parent's on this call, but even traveling on a bicycle at 10 miles an hour can be hard to do. So let alone a motorized vehicle. So I believe 15 miles an hour is what it stands at. But I don't think that it's probably being followed. I mean, I shouldn't assume because I'm not out there, but the damage is still occurring with the set speed limit.
Kevin McKeon, you wanted to answer Councilor Stackpole's question? He did have his hand up, didn't he? Oh, there you are, Kevin. Go ahead. You have to unmute and show yourself, please.
Sorry about the delay. Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
I'm sorry you can't see me. I've unclicked the thing, but it must be a glitch with my computer. I'm sorry you can't see me.
That's okay. Go ahead, Kevin.
You're not missing much, believe me. As far as the speed limit goes, it's not really, it's an issue, but the ATVs now, they're getting bigger and bigger, and the weight alone and the dust that it kicks up is a big issue with the wildlife. Hazen alluded to the fact that a lot of wildlife is getting destroyed. I've seen turtle pieces, dead frogs, and dead snakes. I stopped taking pictures of them, 2 years ago because nobody was listening. So I said, the heck with it. When we first moved here 40 years ago, there were wildflowers all over the sides of the rail trail. They're just about all gone now. What happens is some of the dust is the same size as the pollen, and it displaces the pollen. It disallows the plants to fertilize. And over the course of 30 years or so of motorized use, those wildflowers are now gone. They'll come back eventually, but they're gone right now. So the beautiful wildflower walks that you would see really all year long, close to the Lebanon line, that's gone. We had a great blue heron rookery that has been abandoned by the blue herons. They're now up on the other side of Oak Street because of the noise. Like Dr. Johnson alluded to, the noise alone affects wildlife in so many ways. I've written you folks a paper on how it affects like the frogs. The only way they can exist is if they hear each other. and it's an interesting, if you walk along some of the places where non-motorized use is in the springtime and you hear the spring peepers, you can get within 35 to 50 feet of them. They'll stop singing because they know you're coming. It's an unbelievable experience how they exist, and with the noise, they lose that communication to reproduce. So that's my answer to the question for the wildlife. Also, the rail trail from Hanson's Ridge Road to the Lebanon line passes through a inland wading waterfowl habitat that's been mapped by the state of Maine and protected, but it's not protected now because the rail trail was already there when it was listed. That is where the great blue herons were. When we first moved in here, where that heron rookery was, there were egrets, rails, bitterns, all kinds of wading waterfowl. They're pretty much all gone now. They'll go there once in a while to forage, but they don't nest there anymore. And the nesting is the important part. Thank you very much. And what happened earlier today, this seems so damn trivial, but thank you so much to the city officials for today and for what you do for us.
Thank you, Kevin.
And thank you, Kevin, for the answer.
Counselors, oh, sorry. Okay, another hand up. Okay, but I'm going to wait a minute and see if there's any counselors that, Counselor Martell?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. Just a couple things. Excuse me. We have seen improvements by implementing the speed limits, as we've heard from some of the testimony tonight. The PD just got its new side-by-side. It sounds like it's been a little bit limited as far as their use of it, just due to staffing issues. So I don't think ample time's really been given to have a good amount of time to see how effective that is. The other thing that, and maybe I misheard this, but it sounds like we've limited the ability for the ATV club to perform maintenance that they've offered multiple times, and it sounds like there's multiple members with tractors, I'm sure they've got box blades and rakes and things that can clean the trail up pretty well. I don't think that we're fully utilizing the opportunities we have from the members that are offering to do this work for free or little money. And then finally, if people are having a trailer, all their equipment outside of town to go ride, say in Waterboro, they're taking their money elsewhere, then that's a day spent in another town where they're taking their family out to eat. They're not spending money locally. So I think we should continue to try to better and improve relations with everyone that's using that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Martell, and I'm going to let the city manager address the issue. We keep hearing that they're offering to do that, but I will let the city manager, explain why that is not as simple as you think it is. So, city manager, please.
Right, so any work that needs to be authorized by our director, who is speaking here this evening, and it also has to be performed by individuals that are insured and have been approved as a contractor and vendor for the city. So they'd have to have their insurance in place in order to perform that work.
Brady, did you want to add to that, or is that sufficient? Okay, thank you.
Perfect.
Councilor Termath.
Thank you. I just think, and I second, a lot of the sentiments that are spoken here tonight, especially here in our community where there is limited options to recreate. And, ATVing is not hanging out on the side of the street, not doing anything. I mean, they're out there, they're active, and they're in the wildlife, and they're out there and they're fishing and they're doing something positive. I like Hazen's plan, and I'll say this publicly. I do like the plan, the compromise plan. I do like that. That's a start. However, if we want to talk about, endangered species and wildlife, let's talk about the minor subdivision on Welch's Lane that's going to take out the lady slipper, which is a protected endangered plant in the state of Maine that nobody's talking about right now. But they want to put 12 acres They want to put 6 houses on 12 acres. So let's get that out of the way. Also, number two, has anybody talked to Bambi, about how they feel? I mean, we can't talk to the wildlife. We don't know how the wildlife feels. So let's put this thing into perspective here, right? ATVs have a place. They've been here before a lot of these houses were built. A lot of these houses got built around the trail. So I just want to make that point. We need to put this into perspective, work with everybody, and also, too, they do help bring business into the, bring money into what businesses we have left in Sanford, right? So let's get real, okay? So, we had 6 small businesses close right before election. But also, I just want to say that this is a positive recreation activity, and for those that live around the trail, if you do kill the ATVs, what's going to be next, right? Horseback riding, because eventually it's not going to stop with the ATVs. It's going to keep going, all right? I've seen it in other communities. We had equestrian trails where I used to live, beautiful horses, always rode, but people walked and people jogged. And eventually the joggers and the walkers won, and they pushed the horses out. And they ended up closing down an equestrian center that was used for Olympic athletes. And that was a huge loss to that community. So I just want to urge everybody to put things in perspective. We can work to compromise, but, and I'll say this, ATV is a good thing. It's a positive recreational activity, just like jogging and walking is. Thank you.
Thank you. Ann Hanselman, Councilor Hanselman, go ahead.
Thank you. So I think we're actually all in agreement that our trails, and in particular the railroad trail, is a huge asset to our community and Hazen of weight in our community, and we're very appreciative. I mean, I think I can say that the community is very appreciative of what you've accomplished over time. So I think this is a situation where whatever we decide, somebody's going to be very angry, right? And I think we could probably all agree on that. When I look at it as what decision provides the most opportunity to our community as a whole to use this asset that we have, while also trying to balance wildlife issues, and it's a constant balancing act, right? This is not an easy, and unlike I think Kevin said earlier, this is not trivial, actually. It's really important, and I think this could be a decision that I look back at 10 years and, may feel differently about. But when I think about, and I'm not an ATV user, I dislike them greatly, actually. They're for me, they're loud, they're not a great way to get out in the wildlife, but I have the capacity and ability to get out in the woods or the mountains. I have the ability physically to do so. I am lucky my family is the same way. So we choose to get out in the wildlife on foot generally. And I can't bike to save my life, so even though Morris tried to get me out there. So my point, however, is that there are folks in our community that can't access the outdoors without having some method that's motorized to do so, whether it's an e-bike or not to say you couldn't do it without an e-bike, but motorized access to our trails opens up, or trails in the state of Maine or anywhere, opens up access to areas to folks that couldn't otherwise get there, and that feels important to me. So I think that when we look at the multi-use trails, and I'll disagree with Mr. Burnett very respectfully. I do think it's a multi-use trail. I think it has the ability to be multi-use. I use it at least twice a week during the summer and actually the winter as well. I'm very appreciative of the snowmobilers for that reason. I see people out there all the time, and I have never once had a bad experience with an ATV rider not slowing down. I've actually told them to hurry up and pass me because I run at the same pace that they're supposed to be going, and my dogs go wild. So long story short, I won't be supporting the proposed change. And again, I don't know that it's the right decision. I don't know that if in 10 years I'll be regretful of this, but right now I feel like I have to think about opportunity for use of an asset in our community by a diverse group of people, and I feel keeping it open is important. Thank you.
Other comments by councilors? Councilor Martell?
Yeah, I just had an add-on to that. I know a gentleman that is limited in mobility, and he actually is able to use some of the trails, or a lot of the trails, with his little mobility scooter. So he's gotten some great enjoyment out of being able to explore that. So I want to make sure we're not shutting those sort of opportunities down.
Any other comments? I'm just going to make a couple, regardless of how this vote ends up this evening. I am appreciative of the fact that we had this year-long discussion, and I do agree that it should not end. I think it's an ongoing discussion, whatever happens. I personally think that there needs to be discussion about when does an ATV not become an ATV any longer, when those wheels are too big, and I'm hopeful that there will be legislation or a way to look at that so that we can limit, if in fact we're going to allow motorized use of these trails, which I actually agree with Lee, that I do think that there are some trails that should be limited because they do become ATV trails in light of the damage that they do to the trail. There is just no way that we have the amount of money and the personnel that we can ever keep up with the damage that's done. That is my opinion. And as a taxpayer, that personally is not where I would rather see our tax dollars go for things that don't have to continually, and I don't mean that every 5 years or 10 years, every single year go in and at least once or twice during that season fix the damage that's done. So I just think that we have ATVs that are no longer ATVs, that are too big, and if there is a way that we could limit that, should the vote go to allow the motorized use. And I also think that you're discounting a lot of the complaints that we're not hearing this evening that I have personally heard all year, because there are people who will not come back to complain because they have then been targeted by some of those same ATVers who come and do the very things that they know they will be gone by the time the police come, or they're just sick of calling the police. And they just don't want to be targeted in their neighborhoods. And these are the neighborhoods that are in the village. This has nothing to do with going all the way out to the Lebanon line. These are the ones that go from Pleasant Street over to the Oak Street Road, and then through that other back neighborhood. But those houses were there before it became a rail trail for ATVs. That was where the trains went. And there were a lot of houses that were there for a long time, but that was where the the train went through. And it was a train. It was on a track. It wasn't, it didn't do damage, it just went through, and people listened, and they heard the train, but that's the truth about that area. So however this vote goes, it will be, finally, we will take a vote on it, and I think that if nothing else, we've had that discussion, and as I told Hazen, I had promised that this would come to a vote before the end of this year, and that's what tonight is for. So unless there's further discussion, and I don't see any hands up.
Yeah, he is.
Actually, once the council has reached this point, we're ready to vote, and we're not going to allow any more public input, and that is in our rules of procedure in case anybody wants to check it. So we're done with our deliberating. This is the council discussion. Do you want? No, you can talk, because I haven't called the vote yet.
All right. You all set?
Yep, I certainly am.
You know, this is a tough decision, and I'm counting the votes up here in my own way. And I want to find a way to vote for the ATVs because I think it's a legitimate part of recreation. But at the same time, most of us have had some personal experience with ATVs where they do get annoying. I happen to own some property out in Newfield where ATVers are not welcome in too close proximity. They will continue to be annoying, and I have a friend of mine who had to put rocks across his field so that the ATVers wouldn't go through the fields. And I know we're talking about the people that don't want to follow the rules, and that the people in the club and the work that you've done, and I applaud that work. you know, you're trying to make a positive impact. But it's been years now. I mean, I've been on the council for 6 years. I think this goes back at least 6 years before the club was formed. I believe in whenever the club was formed, I actually happened to be at that meeting. You know, the trails people, you know, solicited, is anybody willing to do this? And I think you stepped up, Matt, and you said, I'm willing to do this, and you did it, and it's had a positive impact. I think we're at this impasse because everybody's worked hard on both sides, and we're still in the same place. And I think that's why, and I discussed this with the mayor, but this is why we need to have this discussion, and we need to make a decision. So this is going to be revisited in a year? That's part of the motion?
I didn't make it part of the motion.
Or was that a suggestion?
I didn't make it part of the motion. I just made a comment that no matter what, we should always, like, say if it goes to motorized, keeping it motorized, I would expect that we would discuss this annually because things could change very quickly in a year. If you don't have any responsible people on the ATV club keeping an eye on the motorized, it could turn south very quickly. The only reason there hasn't been more damage this year really is through their efforts, and I do recognize that. But there has been damage, and it's the weight of vehicles, I think, is a big part of it. And then the noise and the animals, and that bothers me a lot.
And I do think Councilor Chermath and Martel make good points, okay? I'm going to offer an amendment that we revisit this. A year might not be the appropriate time, first time around, but let me just say annually, and then it will be up to the council when they want to do that, but whatever.
So a friendly amendment to the
whatever
motion?
the decision is.
Whatever the decision is,
Whatever
well,
the
then I
decision is,
suggest.
positive or negative, we revisit it annually.
Then I'm going to suggest that we vote on the motion that's there, and then if you want to make a subsequent motion, you can do that. Okay? So right
That
now,
will be my
the
intent,
discussion
so
is
everybody
for the
understands it.
current motion. So anybody else that wants to speak? Okay, then I'm going to call the vote. All those in favor of the motion to, and just to be clear, the motion is to close the rail trail from Pleasant Street to the Lebanon line to motorized use. Right. All those in favor of the motion? That is 1, 2, 3, 4 in favor. All those opposed? 3 opposed. So the motion passes. Councillor Stackpole.
So I would like to offer a motion that we revisit the issue of motorized vehicles on the rail trail on an annual basis.
By a particular time of the year, did you want it?
Well, I don't know what that time should be.
Okay, so we'll leave
If I
that.
said yearly, we'd be in November, that might be too late.
Well, I think it would
leave
be.
it up to the council to decide what.
I'll
an
second that
annual
motion, and I
basis.
suspect it would be enough time to see if we've seen a significant reduction.
In damage. Okay, that's a good idea. So we have a motion to revisit the issue next year, I would say in 2023, probably at a point where they'd be able to evaluate whether the improvement occurred. That's the intent, to look at it, to see if the rail trail has actually improved without any motorized use.
What he said,
Okay.
what Bob said was annually. You're saying next year.
Well, that would be next year, a year from now.
Oh,
Okay.
no, he's saying annually.
Oh, okay,
Annually would be
okay, so,
repeating.
oh, all right, I understand.
But
So-
I would have to say that the council can't put upon another council rules. So
Oh, they actually, that one they actually
No,
could.
the annually part.
annually
Oh.
part,
Say, see it
In a year.
but we couldn't say you have to do it
every year from now on.
You could only do that if, well, we actually could because we are the legislative body and another council could overrule that, but we can say that, but another council next year could say,
Could
oh, we
then
don't want to do
overrule
that.
it?
So
Okay.
no, I know we can do that because the state legislature does it all the time.
I mean,
And then other legislatures overrule them.
Yeah, I mean, I would think at some point, it would become a moot point, right? If it keeps getting denied year after year after year, then, you know, it probably should go away. But I'm not prepared to offer a sunset on this at this point.
Okay, so go ahead,
Yeah,
Councilor Termath, you have a question?
Yeah, real quick. And my only concern is that this topic has been, like, on the table for 6+ years now. So at some point, I mean, we have to say, right, you know, enough's enough. So, I mean, we're gonna have to either, you know, put a motion on the table to finally put this issue to bed once and for all,
I think we did that.
or,
Well, his annually means that we.
right.
Oh.
Exactly. So yeah, just to be clear, you know?
So in other words, you probably don't support his motion to revisit it since we have, and that would be fine. But Counselor Hanselman, you had a...
I guess I just wanted to share the perspective that revisiting it could provide opportunity to review the status of the rail trail, changes that might have occurred in the community, see if we're seeing an increase of issues without the support of the local ATV club, which is what I fear will be the case. But it gives us an opportunity just to revisit it. I don't think that's a bad thing myself.
Just one more thing.
Counselor Stackpole?
So I think that the city has given the ATVers, the ATV club, the benefit of the doubt for years, okay? So this is kind of my decision and why I voted to remove the motorized vehicles. We've given them the benefit of the doubt, deservedly so, through their hard work, but there's still an issue. It's still not resolved. So I'm pushing it the other way. That's why I voted the way. I mean, I figured out I was the vote, right? That's why I voted the other way, because what we're doing isn't working. So let's try this. Let's revisit it in a year, see where we're going, see what everybody can do. You guys have put a lot of effort into this. I don't want to throw it all away. That's me speaking. I don't want to throw it all away. Let's see what we can do to come together and see what we can do to make this work.
Okay, I'm sorry, but at this point, we have the rest of our agenda that we have to get through, so we're going to vote on the motion by Councillor Stackpole to revisit this issue in a year. All those in favor, by a show of hands? Oh, yeah, we did.
Yeah,
She seconded.
Laura-
Yeah,
Laura
we had
seconded.
yes. That is a unanimous vote. Okay, thank you all. We're going to just go on to the next item. 22-540-01, discussion on city council goal setting. This was turned over to, for those who remember, this was turned over to a subcommittee, and it went to Councillor Termath, Councillor Hanselman, and the deputy mayor, and then I think they had another meeting that just the deputy mayor and Councillor Hanselman were at, and the document that you have in front of you is the document that they presented to us. And just to be clear, this is for discussion this evening. It will come back in a month at our last meeting in December, where we will hopefully adopt these and any adjustments made at that meeting. I'm going to ask Councillor Hanselman and Deputy Mayor Herlihy in particular, because they were primarily responsible for putting this document together, to go through it for everyone. And if you would like to ask a question, please do so. Raise your hand. I am going to take a 5-minute break. I'll be right back, but I'm going to put the gavel in the deputy mayor's hand. Physically, you don't need the gavel, but I'll keep it over here. And if you don't mind, just begin that discussion, and the two of you can run this. And Steve, you have a copy as well. Perfect. Just for everybody, we are not going to vote on this tonight. When our discussion is done, we will table it to the second meeting. But please don't make a motion to table until you're truly ready to table it. And I'll be back in a minute. Thank you.
Okay. I don't think, has anything on the front changed significantly, Ann? Nothing has changed significantly on the front, which are the core part of our goals.
Well, actually, there is a significant change. We got rid of one of the old pillars of community image. So that was kind of
It encompasses getting the
absorbed.
marketing.
Correct, which we accomplished. And then we absorbed some of the other community image items within their respective categories. So community image used to be a pillar in the old council goals.
So, but we have not eliminated the community image as something we're concerned about. We put it into where it fits under community development, fiscal planning, responsive representation. Okay? One of the things we all agree we had difficulty is finishing the results and measurability, and I think that's primarily what we targeted, and make sure to get rid of redundancies. So I don't know if we want to go through these one at a time. If anybody had a chance to look at it, I know we got it to you late, but obviously the revitalization of the downtown has a significant amount of bits and pieces, because we're working on various activities now, especially with the RAISE grant, and what we're going to need to accomplish a significant redevelopment of our downtown with the RAISE grant, including supporting the Growth Council's efforts, supporting the Friends of Downtown efforts. There are things on here that I think could be accomplished in a year or two. There are things on here that are going to be many years in the making before we finalize it. We all know the RAISE grant isn't going to be coming until 2026 to 2030. Yes, Jonathan.
I just noticed that on the measurability for the first row,
Yep.
It looks like the text is cut off. Page 2.
Increased tax space within that should be within the downtown. I think that's all, yeah, that's within the downtown. Okay, so I don't know if anybody sees anything on the first page. Did you want to point anything out in specifically, Ann, on the first page?
No.
Yeah, okay, no. I think we've got everything in there. We've got parking, we've got as you can see, marketing is in there. Support the budget for the execution of the community advertising. Friends of Downtown's in there, Growth Council and their efforts are in there. Throughout, increase our activities, get the RAISE grant done, make sure that there's support for the RAISE grant as we are working through it. That's kind of what we hope is happening as we're going through these activities. We're building support for the activities. Housing, obviously continue the work we did with that first housing meeting and continue to get people to understand the complexity of housing, so that, again, community understanding, you'll see as a theme throughout this document, is making sure the Facebook discussions are not just because, are becoming less and less because people are understanding more and more the efforts that we're making. So housing is a huge part of that, because that's where people are most concerned for their fellow citizens. Work on getting more developers to look at Sanford as a place to have housing, and probably do more and bigger and larger projects. We know that there are roadblocks in a couple of different sections of this document. You'll see us mention roadblocks, and we want to make sure as a council we're working on an activity that highlights and brings to light the roadblocks better than we are doing now. We all hear it from different people. We all have, ideas of what's happening. We want to work on those roadblocks so that we have more housing coming through to support the citizens of this community, especially as we're going to have, hopefully, a really revitalized downtown. Support for the land bank effort. Again, that the focus is there are vacant buildings in this community that could be providing safe housing for our residents, and it is not there. Either vacant or they're unsafe, and we want to continue that effort. One of the things we point out in this is that we'd like to see more effort in deepening. I think that's a good way, deepening the land bank so that there is more flexibility within staff on the land bank, because we know that it is a lot for just one person to pull it all together. So the more that the existing can do bits and pieces, maybe that we'll see even more results coming from that, and more efforts coming forward to us, because we do understand how complex it is. Again, these are all easy for measurability, because we want to see the number of vacant buildings reduced, we want to see the number of housing units increase, and we want to not see dangerous buildings in our community. Transportation infrastructure, I think RAISE grant is doing a great job with that, but this is economic development. In order for economic development to do its work, it has to have good housing for the employees. It has to have good transportation options for employees. I think we did a great job with approving that bus route that it's going to get people around. So things like that is what we're looking at with economic development. Work on business retention. Again, this is where we come around to roadblocks. Look at roadblocks. What are the roadblocks? Why are businesses building here? Why are they not building here? We need to look at those. So that continued effort on our part, and maybe getting a little more specific so that we can resolve any issues. Again, marketing is mentioned in here for attraction. We combined a couple of the efforts, like the main biz, we combined it with conferences, including Marita. We didn't want to have that separate. It's all the same thing. It's getting our name out there in a variety of ways as much as possible. And you can read the measurability as we go through, but, you know, increased business licenses, more plots available in IDC as we try to help and support their efforts in opening up lots down in that general direction as well. Zoning, obviously, took a little bit of effort in zoning. And Mike and Ann and I had some good conversations around this, and it comes down to, we understand that we can't fix a lot of our zoning. We're just going to keep striking and readjusting our zoning. We need a rewrite, a modernized rewrite, and we can't do that without a comprehensive plan. So we want to try to make an effort on our part not to have so much work going towards our staff that involves rewriting on zoning, so that there can be an effort to put this comprehensive plan together, get an idea of what we want for a vision of our community done, so that we may start to look at our zoning and modernize our zoning and take out some of the antiquated overwritten zoning. We have a lot of overwritten zoning, which I think increases the complexity. Yes, Mike?
Thank you. Yes, I just want to say that on this, I think this will put us in a good position going forward to fix a lot of those kind of, I wouldn't call them holes, but you know, those roadblocks for planning and zoning and whatnot, and to try to streamline that. So thank you very much, Deputy Mayor, for that. That's awesome.
I think one of the things that we discussed, and you were there, Mike, is that there's a lot of staff time given to kind of explaining our zoning, and that's because it is, when you get into zoning and you're constantly rewriting it, or anything and you're constantly rewriting it, sometimes it loses its clarity. And I think that's where we thought the ordinances were at this point. So after the comprehensive plan, you know, start looking at our zoning ordinance and start looking at what's so complex. We get way too many questions and people are very confused and staff time is lost, taking people baby steps through the process. I think the best example is probably the sign ordinance, which even our economic growth, who the director of the Economic Growth Council has said is crazy overwritten and it's just too complex. So that's the best example we can come to of some of the efforts that we're hoping for. And the measurability, we're hoping some of it would be, you know, saved staff time. Pre-application to shovel in the ground is reduced because, you know, they understand what we're looking for. They can get a good jump on prepping for what we're looking for before they even meet with staff. And that we see some small business growth because of it, because we've all heard the stories of small businesses that choose not to come. And I think the hurdle is the complexity. It's too complicated. The conversations they have with staff are difficult, and they just throw up their hands and try what they would consider a simpler town. So I'm trying to be bluntly honest on what we tried to write here without being unkind to ourselves. And then obviously meet the LD 2003 requirements as we're adjusting and building zoning after the comprehensive plan. We do want to put a lot of effort into the comprehensive plan. So I wouldn't expect a lot of this zoning to take place until we allow staff to put some more effort into the comprehensive plan. And we hope it leads to more housing, more use of vacant land that isn't sprawled across roads. Whatever zoning changes we make have a positive impact. I think I said to Mike and Ann as we're talking about this, is this great book I have called Middle Housing, and it talks about how they rewrite zoning so it encourages this type of development. And you see this natural progression of neighborhoods occur because zoning is written in such a way to encourage that. And that's kind of the vision I had when I was helping to write this section. Fund the capital improvement programs. Obviously, first and foremost on that was the fire stations and the fire station feasibilities. And the idea is that the result is we are building community support for bonding, and the measurability is we actually get the fire stations approved. We all know it's a tough one, but it's an important one. Continue to fund CIP, that we now have full control of the budget at the council level, so the goals that we have set for ourselves, we should be looking, in the past, should be efforts we make in our council activities and hopefully keep our road capitalization funded, as we had hoped when we put the bond together for the roads. And then, and this is annually present a revised plan for roadway CIP. So they have that meeting that we had a couple weeks ago with residents every year, so they can understand how the roads are improving, how Ray's grant is coming, just constant education to the public of what we're doing on that particular issue, and continue to fund the parks and make sure that we have enough money going into our parks and make it more recreational opportunities. We see park usage up, we see the revenue data up for the Parks and Rec, and people have pride in the parks, and we don't see the needles in the parks because they've had such pride in the parks. How's that? Expand and diversify the tax base. It comes back to a lot of what we talked about in prior sections: economic development, work with the land bank, diversification of the tax base. Then in the next one, we talked about reviewing non-property tax revenues. So I've been noticing, I think other councilors have been noticing, an effort to have more fees, et cetera, put together. Some good, some bad. How do we measure that? We should need to come up with some measurability that we can actually look at every time a fee is proposed, whether it's a simple park fee or whether it's, I think we use pay as you throw as the perfect example of a fee that we can measure. We know how much it's going to cost to get rid of our trash, so we know how much we have to charge for the bags in order to get rid of the trash and not have it cost taxpayers. So that's a perfect example. Other fees we put in place, are they too high? Are we actually not just covering our costs, but making, a lot of money on it? We shouldn't really necessarily be doing that. We just want to make sure that these fees are covering the cost of the activities so that the taxpayers don't have to pay for the activity. I think that's what we talked about when we looked it over. And then of course, guys, now that we have the budget approval process, we have to come up with a process for the budget approval. We have to do, we believe we have to do education workshops on the municipal budget so councilors become better informed about what revenue sharing or other things in the budget meet, because I think there's been a little bit too much of a hands-off approach in educating ourselves, and at the same time start paying attention to and educating ourselves on the language of the school budget. What does, aid to education mean, and where does it come from, and what does 55% mean, so that we become more adept and we're not constantly re-educating ourselves as we discuss the budget. We need to know what all those terms mean. And the final, increased citizen engagement and trust. It talks about biannual, annual town hall meetings to receive input or respond to questions, like we have done with the housing and the roads. Try to continue to encourage people to come to meetings like that. And then we talked about, making sure major issues go through the communications coordinator so they're better explained. Hybrid meetings, continue to have hybrid meetings, continue to receive and resolve resident complaints in a timely manner, communicate our council priorities to residents better than we have been doing to make sure that what we're working on, because I think a lot of people don't understand what we're working on sometimes. Increase council involvement with state legislators. Steve does a lot of this for us with the LPC and the mayor with the Mayor's Coalition, but I think we need to be more involved in paying attention to what's happening at the state level so that we better understand the impacts to our community, and be community ambassadors by going to community events, and so that people see councilors at community events. I think today was an excellent representation of what it means to people to see us at something so traumatic as what happened today. So we need to make sure that we're going to more events that mean something to the various members of our community. So that's what we put down. We are welcome. We would love to have suggestions of anything we may have missed, something that we think is maybe more important than what we've put down. obviously, this is a constant work in motion.
And my suggestion is that, I mean, we can talk about it this evening. I think that the reason I wanted to make sure everybody had a hard copy was that you could take it home with you and work it over and really think about it and come back when it's on it in a month. I'm not saying that we can't talk about it and you couldn't have it on at the next meeting if you wanted to, but in my opinion, give it a month where you have the time and really spend some time looking at it and come back, and we'll have plenty of time at the second meeting in December to talk about it and hopefully decide what we're going to vote on, because you will have a workshop, I'm quite sure, in January that will be a council workshop in how you envision implementing these goals and how they will inform your budget as well. So unless somebody really wants to spend another half an hour or so talking tonight, which I'm fine with if you want to, but I think that there's a lot going on here, and I want to thank the three counselors that worked on this, because this is the hard part, putting together our thoughts from our workshop. I read it last night late, I think it was, but I appreciated the fact that I think you did a good job of getting rid of the stuff that we'd already done, but clarifying and expressing the things that I think seem to keep coming around, that you can see in every single thing. There are some key things that are goals that fit into a lot of categories, and I think that keying in on those will help the council realize the completion, hopefully, or at least some action on those and progress on those goals. Steve, did you have anything that, I know you probably haven't had a chance to really even look at this yet after the day you had, so.
Well, it's aggressive, right? There's a lot in there, but
Right.
It can be easily and well supported. So, I'm just looking at the last page, the increased citizen engagement. I do work hard on your behalf as far as advocacy. I listen to what the council wants, and I bring that to the state level on a consistent basis. The tremendous part that you as councilors can do is go to the legislature when those come up, because your testimony before the legislature has far more weight than mine as elected officials. The elected officials want to hear from you as elected officials, and not necessarily me as an administrator. So.
And I think when we wrote that, we understood that, especially because Anne Marie bangs it into our head constantly. So I agree, paying more attention to what's happening statewide. You and Anne Marie have been a huge asset to making sure that happens. I know Pete, our new counselor, is very well aware of going up to the state. I've gone up, but I think we all need to pay more attention. I mean, there's a lot that changes when you have to focus 100% on the budget as a city council, and can't just say, well, it's not ours, and take your hands off of it. Because our hands have never been off of it. But you want to pay more attention to what's happening in Augusta. You should be paying more attention to what. And I think that's part of why we put that in there. It needs to happen.
Any other comments or questions before Councilor Hanselman?
Just really briefly, I just want to, we had to keep reminding ourselves, right, as we were going through this, can the council actually do this as an activity? So there were some things in here that weren't necessarily council activities, not that we don't support them, right? So I think, Steve, you would notice Sanford Net Fiber is missing, right? But that doesn't mean it's not supported. It just means at this point, our staff are managing that forward motion with that. So I just want to make sure that we really look at it from what can the council do, or where does the council need to push priority that isn't already being done by departments and staff and so on. And then I think, I don't want to speak for Maura or Mike, but I really am open and hopeful for feedback, so please don't be hesitant in any fashion.
Yeah, mark up these papers. Councilor Termath.
Yeah, thank you. Just really quickly, the first meeting we had, we really brainstormed a lot of this stuff, and I just want to caveat just that one little point, because it's not about micromanaging, right? If it's not on here, we're not taking the approach. If it's not on here, we're not paying attention to it. We're paying attention to it, but it's certain departments already running with the bull, right? And they're doing a fine job with that. So it's like, in our kind of opinion, you know, and I'm only speaking for myself here, is that, you know, these goals, yes, they're aggressive, but are they attainable? Absolutely. You know, we got to keep pushing the city forward.
Okay, Councilor Martell.
Just quick question, thank you. I noticed this was sent out as a PDF. Would it be possible to get the Excel file so we can redline if we have anything that we want to make some changes
The
to?
formatting is really hard to share. So, meaning if you type in it, it's really, so if you don't mind redlining a hard copy and scanning it even,
Okay.
that would be better.
All right, thank you.
Right, because when we come back, we'll go through it piece by piece, and if there are places there were no comments or questions, then we'll just continue, and when we get to a place where there is, everyone will have the opportunity to give their piece. So for me, I don't intend to ask people to send their red line copies in and have us look at them. I prefer that to be as a discussion piece as we go along. I'm only going to have my paper in front of me, and then we will have people here who will hopefully be keeping, if we decide to change a little piece, Larissa will do that while she's sitting right here. Okay, because that's how, that's how I envisioned it, because I think that's easier, because I just can't take the time to go through every single person who redlines their thing and then sends it to me. I don't want to do that. I don't want to have it in Granicus. I would like us to have a good discussion instead. Is that all you had, Jonathan?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Counselor Brink.
I also like the idea of a brain trust, that you might stimulate something in my mind, and you guys might the same. And so I want to hear from you, not just read from you. And so my opinion might change because of what you say. I'd like that. So
Well,
agree.
I fully expect that we will have a better discussion, and it will be very focused on the, and I think we'll probably all have, we'll see that there are going to be areas that all of us may either have agreement on or discussion that need to be changed. So anyway, that'll be in a month. Actually, you think about it, what we'll be doing in a month will be close to Christmas, so just remember that. Oh, Lord, it just, I haven't even thought about Christmas yet. Okay, so are we, I would say that we're done with this discussion for this evening. How about if we have a motion to table this item into the second meeting in December? Deputy Mayor Herlihy?
I'll make a motion, we table this item until December 20th, I believe it is.
And Councillor Brink?
Second.
And we have a motion and a second. All those in favor? That is a unanimous vote to table. Okay. Council member comments. Okay, let me get my list, because I have a way I go through this, and if I don't, I'll miss somebody. Okay, Councillor Termath.
Yes, thank you. First of all, I want to put out to our community this Thanksgiving that the Veterans of Foreign Wars Post 9935 at 1 Hutchinson Street in Sanford will be conducting their annual Thanksgiving meal. The Veterans of Foreign Wars have told me that they're expecting to serve about between 100 and 150 free, and I say free, community meals. However, volunteers and donations, whether it's food or monetary, is always accepted by the organization. So that'll be November 24th, Thanksgiving, from 1 p.m. to 5 p.m. And if you don't have, immediate family in the area, or if your plans fall through, stop by the Post, and it's upstairs in the banquet hall. Also, I do want to say that after the events of today, I'm very proud to be in this community, and this community, how it came together today, warms my heart. So once again, big thank you to everybody in our community, the whole city, especially our first responders. We back the blue, and we support the red. Okay, so our firefighters, EMS, PD, administrators, teachers, everybody, thank you, thank you, thank you.
Councillor Brink.
What?
I'm just thinking we're having snow tonight.
Oh, no, we're not having snow.
No snow.
This has been one of the more exhausting days I think I've had in a long time. I do want to share that for those people who need a meal or who just want to socialize, Curtis Lake every Wednesday night does pasta, pizza, and salad. I love their pizza, and I am really particular. So they do an excellent job on their pizza. So that's every Wednesday night. It's open to everybody. It's not just people who need a meal. They want everybody to come and socialize. So please, feel free. What? I know, it's so good.
I think it's like 5 o'clock or, yeah. It's, actually, you can look on Facebook because they have a Facebook page at Curtis Lake, and they always, every week, they put on what the, what time it is, and it can be, they used to do drive-through, and I think they're doing in person now. Counselor Martell.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd just like to thank the community for coming together today, and I saw a lot of information kind of flying around, but when some factual information came out, some press releases, those were quickly shared, and just to kind of help keep the rumor mill down. And I just wanted to thank everyone for that, and also again thank our first responders for their professionalism today and how everything went smoothly. So thank you.
Counselor Hanselman.
Thank you. I just want to share a reminder that our high school students have a production of Clue coming out this weekend. I believe Friday, Saturday, and maybe a Sunday matinee. But if you go to Sanford...
Saturday and Sunday matinee. No, Saturday regular, matinee and regular. I don't think it's on Sunday.
Okay. But they have a great website. But if you just search it, or they're active on social media, I highly recommend. The school productions are always amazing. I do not have a theater kiddo, but I still really enjoy their productions. And then just a note, I'm afraid that I may have sounded negative in providing some feedback about the event this morning, but I really did feel like overall it was an amazing response, and my experience was only at one location, but I felt very confident that our police department and EMS were all handling the school site as I had total faith in what was happening there. And it was amazing to see everybody come together at Memorial Gym. It really was. So anyway, I think we'll all appreciate having our kiddos safe at home, and I feel very grateful tonight.
Counselor Stackpole.
Yes, so thank you and thank you. First of all, thank you to the first responders and everyone who was involved in the events that kept everyone safe today. And I agree with the superintendent that it's amazing that no one got hurt. And when you think about the kind of perfect storm that just not the event itself created, but then the moving people around and getting the kids reconnected with their parents is an amazing job by everybody who was involved. And secondly, I just want to say thank you to everybody who voted for me, who supported me in the election. Very happy to be here for another 3 years, and I'm looking forward to it.
Deputy Mayor Herlihy.
Not much to add, except for everybody whose day was completely changed. Tomorrow's another day. You can get those same tasks you expected to get done today, done tomorrow, because that's the way my day went.
Or just not do them.
No.
Which
No,
is
we're
kind of
not-
what I'm
we're-
on.
Yeah.
I'm on that mode.
You're on that
Didn't
mode?
get done, it's not going to get done. So I just wanted to, as long as we're on the supper thing, on the North Parish Church is starting up their third Thursday suppers. The first one is this Thursday at 5:30 to 6:30 at North Parish Church down in the vestry, and it's a turkey dinner. So they welcome anyone. I am just so happy that they're back to doing those. So yes, it's nice to have some normalcy in our lives. Agenda items. Councilor Termath, and I just want to remind everybody up front that we have pretty full subcommittee stuff next. So anything that we talk about tonight will probably not be seen until sometime in December at a subcommittee meeting, if that, okay? Because there's a lot to do between now and the end of the year. So you may name them, and if we can accommodate, we will. Councilor Termath.
No future agenda items. I'd be looking forward to retirement. Thank you.
Counselor Brink.
I think we've already spoke about this, but the cameras at the police,
The body cameras, yes.
they
That's
were
going
gonna
to be,
come
I
and
think you have
demonstrate?
that on the public safety. It'll be on public safety this,
Okay.
next week.
okay, good.
Okay, and just as an FYI, I think someone is going somewhere for Thanksgiving, and since that is very close to Thanksgiving, understood, I will be filling in on the Public Safety Committee next Tuesday, just to let you all know. Counselor Martell, future identified items?
Nothing for tonight, thank you.
Counselor Hanselman?
I think I already submitted a really long list, so I won't add
Yes,
to it.
yes, I was going to say, you did do that. Counselor Stackpole?
Nothing.
Deputy Mayor Herlihy? And I don't have any, so I would welcome a motion to adjourn.
Move we adjourn.
Counselor Stackpole, and second by the Deputy Mayor. All those in favor by a show of hands. Ladies, thank you, unanimous. We are adjourned.